Well, welcome everyone. This is another discussion, let's call it. I don't really have a name for this series, but last time I interviewed Collision. This time we're interviewing a bunch of indie developers. The objective, quote unquote, today is for you guys to get a little bit of an insight into some of the games that I actually really love, especially in the shmups genre, and are on Steam and are being sold right now, and the developers behind them, and a little bit of insight into sort of like their lives and where they're at right now and how they're selling their games and what are they doing, why are they selling their games, all that kind of stuff, everything from A to Z, because everyone here, we'll go through intros, has a game out or multiple games out on Steam or on itch or both, for actual dollars, or pesos or yen or whatever it is that you're able to buy them in. And I wanted to learn, and I wanted to like you guys to learn. And I wanted to just kind of be here while the four of these folks discuss things like curators and and giving keys out to people and developing shmups in general, and what happens after you put one out and what does that look like, and all kinds of fun, interesting topics that I'll be throwing to these guys. But first, before we get in, I definitely want to do a round of introductions. And on my screen I've got a little sort of a clockwise scenario, so I'll call out the names, and you guys want to introduce yourselves. But I definitely want to know why you got into developing games. What's your game that's out right now? Chill it. Take your chill it as hard as you want to. And what are you selling that game for? And where it's out. And for those that have multiple games, name as many or as few as you like. So let's start with BB here from the great land of New Zealand.
Hello, I'm BB. My name's Ben, and my game is Operation S.T.E.E.L on Steam. The roguelike Shootemup, and hopefully you might have heard of it. There's a demo available.
Yeah, there's a demo. Cool. Yeah, and Operation S.T.E.E.L is available just on Steam, right?
It's also on itch.
Oh, it is on itch. Okay, is it the same price on both?
Yes.
Okay, which is I think 20 USD, right? Or
it's 15.
15 USD. Sorry. Okay, got it. I wish it was 20 USD. We can talk about that later. I think it's definitely worth $20 for sure. Alter, you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, definitely have heard and played Operation S.T.E.E.L. Great game, good stuff. Yeah, I'm Alter. I'm the developer of Shootemups. Also putting on a lot of other hats when I'm not developing. So I've done a little bit of the design, sort of like bouncing ideas between the two of us. You're going to hear about that later. Also did some visuals, VFX, sound effects, a little marketing, all those hats that you have to wear when you're doing indie game dev. I'm doing this on the side, and I'm gonna guess this is gonna be important as well. Like, this is not my day job, but it's definitely more than a hobby by this point, which was the intention from the get-go. Shootemups is developed in Unity, and I'm also a professional Unity developer in my day job, but not a game developer. I'm building VR and AR applications for enterprise, so very different content, but sort of overlapping tools and skills, which is also a very interesting situation for me, and a very lucky position to be in, I think.
And so you've been doing all this stuff. Has that been stuff for games, or was that outside of games?
No games. There's been gamey things that we've been doing for, like, show floor demos and stage demos and stuff. But the main thing that we're doing for augmented reality and VR stuff, it's hardcore business enterprise things. So tables and visualization of data and things like that. Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, we'll definitely talk more about Shieldmate MX here on our next person. Michiel, do you want to present yourself and your game?
Sure. Yeah, I'm the other 50% Hit Me Studio. And of course, one of the roles that Alter didn't mention is that he's also, co-director. Like we together we form the board of directors of our company. And, yeah, we definitely want to take it to a professional level. But let me run it back a little bit. I'm a content text editor and writer as a profession. Worked in and out of the games industry throughout the years. I've worked at Nintendo and Microsoft. I've done some game localization work as well for Ubisoft. But yeah, like for example, right now my biggest client is a governmental organ in the Netherlands, and I'm just doing their website editorial work. Like their internal website editorial work. Um, uh, yeah, so that's what my day work goes into. And the reason I've gotten into game development is because I'm a creative individual, like to make stuff, and I love video games. And I always thought the end goal was that I was going to write and draw my own series of comic books. But I ran into my artistic limitations as an artist and got kind of frustrated there. And then, because I love video games so much, I have a lifelong fascination for them. I sort of rolled into video game development, but because I didn't have programming skills, I was lucky enough to be good friends with Alter, who does have a ton of programming skills. I do have writing and conceptual skills, so naturally I'm the, let's say, the overall game designer and level designer of Shootemups.
Awesome. No, that's great. You're like the most experienced. Well, so far out of the four of you, it's very different your experience compared to Alter and Ben. So let's see what we hear from Reg here on the next piece.
So yeah, my name's Reg. Real name Tom. I'm the only guy working at Pixel Liquor LLC. My game that I'm on this podcast for is Dead End City, which came out last October, which is like a post-apocalyptic car shmup, kind of a mix between Galaga and 1941. At least that's what I thought I was mixing up. I've been in the game industry since 2000 when I was working on PS2 games at Capcom. And I was in the industry for about 13 years. And then I had a decent hit on mobile and decided to quit the industry when the last place I was at closed. And so I've been doing it for almost 13 years now, almost 10 years now. So my 10th anniversary is coming up this year. And I have been trying to make a living. I was doing it okay at first, and then the market really does change a lot. And it's probably something we can talk about as a group later, but being an indie really means that you have to balance what you think you can make with what you want to make with what the audience actually wants you to make. But yeah, and then I have also recently released a Steam version of the previous game I worked on, which is called S.T.E.E.L 2. So I have two things that launched in the last 6 months, which has been interesting because they've been slightly different experiences, from launching a shmup back in October to launching more of an action RPG game last month. So,
and
so very quick turnaround, also, right? But of course, S.T.E.E.L 2 already existed on mobile, so it wasn't like you were creating a completely new game from scratch.
Well, actually, S.T.E.E.L was on mobile. S.T.E.E.L 2 was a Switch game, so I went from Switch to PC. Yeah. So I launched S.T.E.E.L 2 on Switch at the beginning of the pandemic, like 1 month into it. Which, for better or worse, it was a unique landscape to try and launch a game into.
Yeah.
So, Reg, are you the only guy out of all of us then that you say you've been doing indie game development for your company as a living for 10 years, or were you saying you've just been in games for 10 years?
No, I've been doing it for a living. I have a very understanding wife who also brings in an income, which allows me to be a little more risky with the stuff I choose to make. But yeah, I would say I was an artist when I was working in the industry proper, and then I taught myself code and design stuff, and just kind of played a lot of games, so I thought I knew how to make games. And I'm still learning on all those fronts, but but at my core, I'm still just an artist. Like I was an illustrator to start with. So but I definitely prefer doing 2D stuff now more.
Gotcha. That's just fascinating. I mean, that is your core. I mean, you've been living it for 10 years. I think we can all learn a ton from you in a lot of different ways.
That's a really different situation from us, yeah.
Yeah, so
I would say stop now and get a real job if you want to eat.
If you're watching this, no. I mean, look, it clearly a passion for you, right? I mean, 10 years. That's not.
Oh yeah.
I even if you get a real job, most people don't even keep their real jobs for 10 years, you know? So that's got to mean something.
Well, to be honest, if you get in the games industry, you'd be lucky to find a studio to work for that doesn't close within 5 years. So
right. Or get acquired and then something else, right?
Yeah, it's really hard to even stay in a studio for very long, like more than a game or two.
So now I'm really curious, what Capcom games did you work on PS2?
I worked on Maximo 1 and 2, and then Final Fight Streetwise.
Very cool. Yeah.
Wow.
So,
especially Maximo 1 and 2.
Yeah, and then they closed us after Final Fight Streetwise. So basically, they shut down the US studio at that point.
Right. Yeah, that was Capcom Production Studio.
8.
What was it called? 8. Yeah.
That was, we were Studio 8.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Then I went over to EA. I worked on My Sims a little bit. Then went to a place called Locomotive and did like some Pixar stuff on PSP. And then yeah, just kind of all over the place.
I know Locomotive.
You know Locomotive?
Yeah.
Nice.
It's ringing a bell, but I now I'm annoyed that I can't remember the game. Is this like the is like the Blob games, like the Mars Blob game, or am I thinking of something else?
No, that's Volition. If you're thinking of the Red Faction.
No. I'm talking about a 2D game that has like a slimy blob dude that you.
Oh, De Blob?
Yeah. No, not De Blob. It was called like Mars something. It was on PSP.
Mercury Meltdown?
No. No, it was like you were like this green anyways, whatever. Since it wasn't your game, I don't know, there's no point in getting to it. But it was like tilt controls and you were like this blob and you were like getting split up and then put back together and you were like swallowing.
That's Mercury Meltdown.
That wasn't the game, though.
There's blob of mercury, and you need to.
No, yeah, well, I know, but that wasn't. Yes, but it wasn't that game.
Right.
Why is Locomotive? What games did Locomotive make? Why is it ringing a bell?
They were a THQ studio, so they basically made stuff THQ published. I worked on Ratatouille, Destroy All Humans. We did a port for PSP. They had done some earlier stuff, like some motocross game.
Okay, interesting. I don't know why that rang this crazy bell, but anyways, that's fascinating. If we start there with you, Reg, you made a decision at some point 10 years ago that I don't think anyone here has made, where you were like, I'm gonna do this full time. I mean, you're out of industry. Did you have a game lined up that you were making, or did you make the decision before you made the game?
So I spent a lot of time on weekends, like learning the software called Multimedia Fusion, which is just like a visual programming software. And
good times. Yep.
Yeah. So I spent like a good 3 or 4 years working on that on the side of working in industry, and then came up with an idea, and I found a publisher, or publisher found me after I released a Flash version of the game, and they wanted to port it to iPhone. So we worked on that, and basically...
This is while you were employed, or after?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was working all this, and it was fine with the employer, but the employer basically had a huge round of layoffs, cut like 90% of their staff, and I was cut loose from that about a month after I launched that game. And that game was a big enough hit that I thought, oh, I can try and just do this for a living. And so that game kind of carried me for a couple years while I worked on the second game. And the second game was something that my publisher wanted to work on, and they ended up canceling that game. So they paid me to work on that game.
Well, at least you got paid on the way over.
Yeah, I mean, I made a lot of art assets and I did a lot of like design stuff, but none of that really saw the light of day. So then I worked on another game for that publisher. They published it and it didn't do nearly as well as the first game, because by that point, paid games on mobile weren't doing well. It was only games as a service. And so the publisher decided they wanted to get out of mobile. So basically, I went off and worked on, my own stuff for a couple years, went back to them, and then they wanted to put that on Switch. So they helped get me a dev kit and all that kind of stuff. So it was cool working on a console, and I was happy to get out of mobile because trying to deal with all the mobile devices is a real headache. I mean, Android alone is like a major headache trying to handle all the devices.
So your first game, the cash cow, so to speak, the food on the table game, was a mobile game then?
Yeah. So that was Slay in 1. That was on iOS and Android.
That's interesting.
But that definitely was like the right time and the right game. It's so weird because you think that you can like read the market and know what's going to do well, or you can try to look at market trends, but sometimes it really is just being in the perfect storm of a bunch of different factors. And I think my game just happened to be in the right place at the right time on the right platform. And that changed within like 2 years of releasing that platform even changed. Like the tastes of the people on it changed. The kind of boost you would get from featuring changed. It was just, and even the rise of indie games, like engines being easier for people to use, having more platforms to put games out. Suddenly the market was flooded. There was no way to have any exclusivity anymore unless you had a lot of money or you had some, mind-blowing new concept or new tech. So it was really an eye-opener. And I've kind of come to a point now where I just have a lot of genres of games that I want to get done before I retire. And I just want to see that stuff out there, and I hope people like it. But I know that it's not in me to enjoy making something that just follows market trends. So for better or worse, like I can't enjoy my life if I just try to make what I think the market wants. So, and when we get to the marketing side of this,
I think
we'll talk about how that's really difficult to market. But
yeah, I think we're getting there, right? And I'm gonna point the mic over to Ben here, and I want to know about Ben. Is Operation S.T.E.E.L your first game? There's Slaying. There it is. Thank you, Alter. Yeah.
99 cents.
Get Slaying 4.6. 4.6 stars. That's better than most of the places that I eat on DoorDash, so that's pretty good. Edible game. But
the last I checked, just to give you an idea of where Slaying was, about a year ago, I think I looked at total units lifetime sold, and I think it's somewhere around 8 million units. So if that tells you what Slaying has made for like all the people involved, I am just a small part of that. And I am by no means rich or doing that well. So.
Yeah,
sure. No, but it's a successful game.
Very successful.
Sure. I mean,
yeah. It's also very scary that your first release is that successful. Yeah. Because it really makes it hard to follow up a success with a not the same kind of success. So. Yeah. But anyway, sorry, didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's okay. But Ben, tell us about how you got into making games. What was your first game? Was Operation S.T.E.E.L the first one you put out, and just generally the projects that led you to the decision to put out a game, to be purchased?
Yep. So Operation S.T.E.E.L was my first game. I've done like maybe a game jam or two before this, but never released anything onto the internet. So making games has just always been like a dream of mine, I guess. It's not something that I am looking at doing as like a full-time job, I guess. Operation S.T.E.E.L was essentially started as a hobby and became something that I figured I could actually make a little bit of money off, but it was never intended to be a money-making scheme. It was a passion project. and yeah, so it took me about 3 years to make. I started, I guess I started because I wanted to play a roguelike shoot 'em up, and there wasn't one
Yes.
out there that.
What a reason! That's the perfect
it's
reason.
just a game that I wanted to play. So I thought I could do this. I found the Godot engine, started
Yeah.
playing around with it, and thought that it was something I could do. So I started doing it.
No, that's amazing. Like
And you did it, and it's out there.
it's
pretty
not
cool.
only is it out there, Operation S.T.E.E.L, guys, for those that haven't played the game, like sometimes when I look at Ben, you're gonna hate this. I'm sorry, so just deal with it. Sometimes when I look at new hoary shmups or other hoary shmups, I just go like, yeah, I'm pretty sure Operation S.T.E.E.L just made this game obsolete. Like, why would I play it? Like, why wouldn't I just go back and play more Operation S.T.E.E.L? Like, it's beyond good. Like, what it does, and I think now that I'm hearing you say that you made it for the purposes of making a game out there that you didn't find, it makes perfect sense because you really can't find it still, you know, in a lot of ways. And like, it astonishes me the quality of that game. 3 years doesn't even sound like a long time based on what's actually in that game, which is a ton. Like, and you've done such a great job through your passion project of making a game that you don't see the seams of the game, and we'll talk about that a little bit maybe sometime, but maybe on a different podcast. But you don't see like, oh, you know, when you look at an STG builder game or a basic shmup or something, you see kind of like, oh, I see this has been templated off of this. Like, this is where the enemies come in, but Operation S.T.E.E.L has this quality to it when you're playing it. I think because it's so fast and furious that when you're playing it, you can play the same level like 3-4 times, and it never feels like you played it the same way. Like, there's something about the way you brought in your enemies, where they come in. It's just a really high quality product for a first game, especially a shmup, and especially in a community of a bunch of haters, like a bunch of us who are just like, oh, this hitbox is too big. Oh, this music sucks. Like, the Dolphin crushed it on your soundtrack.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. And I think 3 years is, even for a passion project, is a significant amount of time, time investment. Do you feel now coming out of that, do you feel like you're going to make another game, or do you feel pretty much like, all right, this is my game for now. I might move on to other things, like kind of did it, but do you feel like this game dev urge to kind of go on and make something more?
Yeah, I mean, I've had a good rest now. The game's been out for a little more than a year, so I've had pretty good rest after. I mean, the last few months making it was a lot of work and a bit stressful, but I feel like I'm getting the itch to start something new now.
Cool.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I mean, I've
You're
kind
in
of
it.
got a couple of ideas, and I am definitely making another shoot 'em up.
Hot off the press! Yo! Operation S.T.E.E.L 2 confirmed.
Maybe.
No, I'm kidding. That's awesome. That's awesome to hear. Another shoot 'em up? Oh, we're gonna grill you later. Moby's gonna be so mad. Reg is gonna be so mad at you for choosing to make another shoot 'em up. Go ahead, Ben.
He says he's got a bunch of genres he wants to make, but I just love shoot 'em ups, and I want to make more shoot 'em ups.
And I want to play.
One,
I want to play more of your
I
shoot 'em
still want
ups.
to make more.
Makes two of us. So I think Alter, you mentioned you hadn't you tangentially were into games. So what compelled you? And there's this other man on our screen over here who I think roped you into this. But what the power of what compelled you to make a shoot 'em up or make a game in general? Like, how did you get into this process of wanting to make this game?
So wanting to make a game in general was something that started a long time ago. Michiel and I met 2007, 2008, something around that at Nintendo of Europe in Frankfurt. Michiel was working there, and I was doing an internship, and we kind of hit it off and started talking about games. And when my internship was finished, we stayed friends. And we started talking about making a game together in 2013, I think.
Yeah,
something like that, right?
Yeah.
10 years ago.
That's the timeline.
Yep. And you know,
Reg had just launched Slayin'. You guys were playing Slayin'
Yep,
together in the
yep,
cafeteria and decided, we could do this.
exactly.
8 million.
That's how it went.
No,
Not exactly.
just paraphrased.
Let's say that
No.
it went like
Yeah, exactly. No, so we started, dabbling with making a game. We had a couple of concepts. We made a couple of prototypes, and it never really took off. So for the better part of a decade, we were just dicking around with that. And when the pandemic hit, another coincidence involving that, I don't remember. I made some prototype of a ship and just use some Hori Shmup template to build that. I don't even really remember why I did it. I had like some animation idea or something that was completely unrelated.
I think because I felt bad, like a lot of work just came on your shoulders with programming. So I was thinking, let me at least learn Unity a little bit so I could help out as well,
Right. Right.
And then I was doing these tutorials, and you were saying, hey, you know what you should do for your first Unity project? You should make a shoot 'em up. But then before I had even finished the whole tutorial section, you had already built the template for it.
Yeah. So
that's how it went.
Yeah, so a bit of a coincidence.
I never even
right?
got to that point.
Yeah. So we just had this template, and then we started talking about shmups, right? And I wasn't very much into shmups at all, but Michiel was a lot. He's a walking encyclopedia of shmup knowledge. But we started talking about that, and Michiel came up with a couple of mechanical ideas, which turned into Shootemups MX at some point, and we just started building it. At first, that's why the game is called MX. That's short for mini something. We had this super small concept for the game, and I wanted it to be 1-bit graphics like Downwell. Just a small thing, that we could quickly hack together and release. And obviously, then scope creep happens.
Oh, you don't say. Oh, you started with a 1-bit shmup
No,
like
no.
Downwell, and there was no scope creep at all, and what we got was pretty much the
No.
chill 1D.
And the composer that we enlisted has played a big part in that scope
Yes,
creep as
very
well,
much
because
so.
his music was just too good for a little 1-bit minigame.
Yeah, definitely. So
we blame Ed for that a lot.
yeah,
It's, oh,
yeah, it's his fault, definitely. So we had this small prototype, and then Michiel got in touch with Ed. They had been chatting on and off for a while before that, and then we got the first piece of music from him. And yeah, like Michiel said, like, this is too good. We can't do a super small game and have this great piece of music. So let's just
I mean,
scale
you
it up
can. You could
just a
have,
tiny
but...
I mean, in theory,
I know
you
what
could
you
have,
mean,
but
I know what you
we
mean.
don't, right? Yeah. So let's scale it up just a little bit. So that's what we did, and the game turned into what it became for the itch release, right? So we released on itch first. It took us about 8 months or so to make the game, which doesn't sound like a lot of time, especially since we're doing it on the side, but I was able to use a lot of the things that I built over the years for the other game projects that we were working on that never turned into full games, right? But it all paid off by enabling us to make this game in a bit of a quicker fashion. And we released on itch first, not as like an early access game or something, but it's a fully featured game at that point. But we still knew that for bigger platforms, so Steam and consoles, we wanted it to be a bit of a bigger game. So it took us 8 months to build the itch release, right? And then it took us like a year and a half to port that to, or make it ready for Steam, put new content in there. And now we're working on the Switch port and on the PlayStation and Xbox ports. It's all been super fascinating, super interesting, loads of fun, some stress, like it tends to go, right? And for me personally, the biggest takeaway was maybe two things. One, just between the two of us, it was really fruitful. I think that Michiel was such a, he's so deep into shmups, and I was not. Like, we tend to agree on a lot of gaming related things, but sometimes we play different genres a little bit. I played fighting games for a long time, very intensely. Michiel also loves fighting games, but it was just a slightly
Definitely not a tournament player like you.
Just a different quantity there,
Yeah.
So I was influencing the things that he wanted to build, and he was reining me in a little bit on shmup conventions and things like that. So that's a big takeaway of things that worked really well. And the other thing was community, like Shmup Junkie Discord server, our own Discord server, all the people, all the fellow devs that you meet, all the players that you meet, lots of tough love, but also just amazing feedback, and the game turned out much better than it ever could have if we hadn't been open to criticism and feedback.
Yeah.
That was really amazing to see, right?
That's a super. I like where you're going with this, and I wanna kind of explore it in maybe a particular angle, which is, and I'll point the mic at Michiel for this, which is, you kind of said, hey, you had the itch version, and then you kind of said, hey, the Steam version needed more oomph, right? It needed more modes or cosmetics. You felt like, to you, there was a stair step moment between the itch release and then the Steam release, and maybe some parity with some console releases down the road if those materialize. Can you talk a little bit about, was that always the approach, and do you see itch as a platform for smaller projects that maybe doesn't have the same reach as Steam, and you feel like to market a game on Steam or really do well on Steam, you need more, you felt like you needed more, or was it really more of just like, hey, you started with itch, that was always the plan, once it started to do pretty well, or you felt like it was doing well, and you kind of made a snap decision to make some, you know what I mean? Like, one is a little more premeditated based on your knowledge of itch as a platform, very intentionally chosen as your starting point, and Steam chosen as another stair step, and one is more of like a, whatever, we started with itch, and now we're do Steam. Like, itch is easier to publish on, obviously. There's a lot less hoops to jump through, right? In some ways.
Yeah.
So
that was a big part of it as well.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit about, like, because I think, what I heard Alter you say, and I'm not putting words in your mouth, but what I kind of heard you say was there was this, 8-month journey to itch, and then almost a double or at least a year plus to get a lot of pruning and additional content and all this kind of stuff for the Steam version. I'm curious what you think about those two different platforms now that you've kind of been through that journey, and do you feel like there's a difference in marketing on either one?
So shall I take that?
Yeah. That's pointed to you.
You can just jump in and add on, at your leisure. Yeah, I think just what you said, like, just the low barrier of entry was a big thing, and us getting it out on itch. The idea was, we have definitely had some more plans of adding extra features to Shield Made MX's 1.0 release. And I think it was kind of a natural thing that it happened the way that it did, because this is very boring technical business stuff, but it didn't turn out to be so easy to set up a company that consists of a German and a Dutch holding. Even with all the things going on with the European unification and all that, there's still even some cultural differences between notaries and lawyers and all that, and they have different ideas of what kind of paperwork should be submitted and signed and all that. So it was a pain in the ass that lasted longer than we would have thought. I think actually we already wanted to, maybe within 3 months or something after we launched on itch, be up and running on Steam.
Oh, really?
So that took a long time. At the same time, it wasn't the worst thing in the world, because it allowed us more time to marinate and take more time to implement those extra features and the extra things that we wanted in the game for the 2.0 release. Yeah, it's just kind of how things went, really. I think we could have been alright launching the 1.0 version on Steam as well. You know, it wouldn't have been the end of the world. But at the same time, also, I know that Alter uh, definitely felt like, okay, we can do more of a quiet launch here and don't have so many eyes on us. And, you know, we can afford ourselves to have more imperfections in the game
For
and
the
more
itch version.
bugs. For the Edge version, exactly, yeah.
There's definitely a sense
And
of
Sort of
like,
worked like
just
a
go ahead and put it out.
early access.
Yeah, exactly. So we didn't want to call the game early access, and we didn't see it that way, but it felt more like a more like a low key way of releasing it into the
Yeah,
world.
yeah, it was definitely a finished game, right?
Yeah.
By the time we released on itch, and we did want to be a bit faster to Steam, and just for various reasons that didn't turn out. And yeah, as Michael said, it turned out to be not be a bad thing. And we definitely planned it from the beginning, right? Like use this really small platform, a great platform in my opinion, but nobody's gonna question that Steam is just much bigger.
Yeah.
And then while we were working towards that, we also got a publishing deal with East Asia Soft,
Yeah.
who are going to publish for the consoles.
This was right after we had actually managed to form our company, and we ordered a
Yes.
dev kit for the Nintendo Switch. So we already had our game registered with Nintendo as a
Yeah, true. Yeah.
as an up and coming project, and then East Asia Soft all of a sudden turned up and made us an offer that we found harder and harder to reason away with and harder to refuse. Yeah. At one point we were trying to find reasons why not to do it, you know, and then like, okay, we should go ahead with this.
And Ben, you have your game on itch and Steam both as well, right? Did you have a staggered launch, or was yours like day and date sort of in parity, or did you have like any kind of early versions up on itch?
No, they were both released at the same time.
That's what I thought. That's what I remember, but I wanna
Yeah.
confirm, yeah.
Yeah, itch. I'm not gonna say it was a. What's the word? I don't know. Just like a side thought. I had the game's demo up on itch a long time before I had my Steam page up, for instance. And I had all my marketing push was all going to Steam, so very little
Makes sense.
has happened with my itch release, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also for PC gamers. It's almost like you don't exist when you're just on itch. You know, you were both on Steam and on itch. We were only on itch for a very long period, and yeah, you might as well not exist for a large part
Totally.
of the
Yeah,
PC
it's-
gaming crowd.
I'm not saying it makes sense, but it's more like legitimate to be on Steam, right? Like
Yeah.
it legitimizes your release.
Yeah. I will say this though, we added Shield MetaMax to the bundle for Ukraine when that came out. That Necrosoft.
Oh,
put
that
out.
the huge bundle.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that definitely got us noticed as well. You know, I mean, it felt like a good thing to do with the war breaking out, and just you feel kind of powerless in those kind of situations, but at least we could contribute to humanitarian humanitarian help. With the thing that we've made, that we have attached at least our own personal value to. But it also meant that now all of a sudden a lot of people that might not have checked the game out on itch or might not have bought it started discovering the game, and you started seeing it more pop up more on social media and conversation, and people started recommending it. Oh, you should, if you got the bundle, you should check this game out, etc., etc.
One of like cream of the bundle sort of games of like, hey, there's 4,000 games in here. Let me tell you, there's 10 you gotta play.
Exactly.
Shield Maid's like number 9.
So many were there.
Or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yes,
You know.
and due to that, we have, I'm just checking the numbers. We have many thousand times more downloads than we have paid downloads on it.
Sure.
Right? So which is great for this.
Yeah.
It
for this
is. It
purpose,
is.
right?
I
And
mean,
especially in that early phase, it's more valuable actually to get the game in as many people's hands as possible, just so that it becomes a little bit more part of the consciousness.
so
Yeah, I
BB,
also
you're. Oh, go ahead.
my game's also in the. I also put mine in the bundle for
Yeah,
Ukraine.
right.
I didn't see a lot of conversation around my game, fortunately,
Yeah.
but I still felt happy that I did it. Yeah.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, it's not like it had a huge marketing effect or anything like that, but obviously that wasn't the purpose anyways. So
Yeah.
I think it's cool. Yeah.
And so Ben, you've got day and date, but really focused on Steam. Reg, you put out Dead End City, the only good car shmup, from what I understand. I mean, Spy Hunter aside, which isn't really a shmup, But did you just went on Steam, or do you have an itch page? Remind me. I have your game on Steam, of course, but
No, I don't have an itch page.
I didn't think you did.
Considered it at first, but it was kind of like I had so many features I needed to get in the Steam ecosystem working that trying to make like a branch that excluded all that seemed like a lot more work at the time. And like what these guys are saying, it seems like it has a very specific crowd. And I'm not saying that's a bad crowd or anything, but I think it's a very small, like it's a niche of a niche crowd. And I think there's a certain kind of game that really resonates with that crowd more. And I don't know that my game was going to make a lot of waves. I think it's more, I mean, I'm not a huge itch user, but from the outside, it appears to be more art house kind of games. Or
yeah, like you're like a really out there
experimental
yeah,
stuff.
exactly.
Like
Experimental is the word I was looking for, like a really experimental visual novel that's dealing with like some really tough subject or some really weird like premise, like where you're like, that's never going to be on Steam, but here it is.
Or someone had a weird game jam game that they
Yes,
wanted to
game
see
jam
to the
games.
end,
Everywhere.
and they wanted to get it out there, and that stuff's great, and it's great to look at that stuff and find ideas and get inspiration from it, but when that's what I need to like earn a living off of, you really got to choose like where you put your work time. And for me, it wasn't a priority, and I had a lot of other things I was trying to get done on the side too, and it just ended up not being a priority. I'd love to put it on as many platforms as possible. I mean, I think that's good because even a little income is still income, and the aggregate of all those shops that you put your stuff on can pay off in the long run. But yeah, itch wasn't a thing for me. And I mean, even Steam, that was my first release on Steam, and I wasn't really sure what to expect, and it was a lot of work getting all the stuff in order. Like I got dinged on probably a good dozen times trying to submit stuff, and every time I'm like, really? That's what you guys are rejecting me for? Like, that's crazy.
Well, I also remember like when we were testing your game, I'd be like, this game's not running, and you're like, what? No, it is. It runs.
Yeah, and I was so worried it was going to hit Steam and like all these PC configurations were going to just pop up and be like, the game doesn't work, or, everything's stuttering, or, the screen isn't the right resolution for me, or I only.
What do you mean it's not 120 frames per second? This doesn't look good on my 8K 320 FPS monitor and my 6070.
No, you need a really successful game to get those kind of people to come out of the woodwork. So I didn't really run into that.
Got him. And that's interesting, right? So when you think about selling your game, what would you say, and I'll start with Ben on this one, what would you say was like one, the biggest surprise when you put your game out after your game was out for like a week that maybe you didn't think would occur when you got in this journey of like, I'm gonna sell a game, right? And what would you say was the biggest thing that you feel like you did really well on the way up, that you're like, I would want people to do this way because it worked out really well, like, right? Like a surprising thing, and like more of like a hey, oh wow, I did that with Operation S.T.E.E.L. and wow, that worked out really well. Like any just like tips on selling an indie shmup, in particular a shmup on Steam, like, you know, from the page to tags, soundtrack, all that kind of stuff. Like, what do you think you did well, and what was something that maybe surprised you?
I think as far as surprises, I was just surprised that people actually bought the game. I wasn't sure it was going to happen.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think a success in my mind was, say, 100 sales. I think I wasn't sure if that was ever going to happen, and I've sold 10 times that many now. So
Whoa! Let's go. Let's go,
so it's
Ben.
been, yeah, thank you. So that was a pleasant surprise. I'm not sure if there's anything like negative surprises. I don't think.
Right. Nothing to
Apart
bitch
from
you.
just how much work it is to get the game into people's consciousness. Yeah, marketing's a lot of work. Or if you care about it, it's a lot of work.
What was your general marketing strategy overall leading up to your Steam release?
Well, I think the thing that worked best for me was just being part of the community. So not only did the Shmup Discord communities, they helped develop my game. Well, not develop, but steer me in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
What was good, what needed work. Also, just like making these connections with people, I could, get my game out there, and people. Well, for instance, Shmup Junkie was very helpful, and he helped run the Operation S.T.E.E.L caravan event. That was
Right,
great for getting eyes and people to know that the game was coming out, and it was a lot of fun too.
So you would say it was very community driven, very grassroots. Like you went to where the players were, and you got like little bits of your crack, and you put it in their pipe, and you said, look, I got some here, tell me if it's any good. But also, like, you kind of went to the source, so to speak, in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
You were, this is targeted, right? Like, you're making a shmup for shmuppers. It feels like, when I'm hearing you say that. So you weren't thinking like, I mean, how do I get to 100,000, 1 million sales? What are people looking at on Steam? What's the biggest, how do I make the next Cuphead? You were thinking, I want to make a good shmup, so I'm going to go to where people know about that, and I'm going to both get feedback from those folks, and I'm also going to use smaller events through those community channels to spread the message from a grassroots marketing standpoint. Did you do anything on like social media beyond the Discord piece?
I did a few tweets.
You have to. That's why Crossgunner is nowhere. I haven't tweeted a single thing because I'm not on Twitter. By Crossgunner, that's the problem. That's what I really need to do. That's what I'm gonna write. Join Twitter.
Yeah, I don't think you need to have Twitter. I don't think it's. I mean, it's very hit or miss, and mostly miss, I would say. But,
That's interesting.
You can get traction there, but I think there's a bit of luck involved. As with anything.
Even if you have some tweets that do reasonably well, it doesn't mean that it could just, for a lot of Twitter users, that's a cool tweet, and they'll never go beyond that. They'll never, let me look up this game and let me put it on my wish list or whatever. Like that follow through, that's far from guaranteed, even if you do manage to turn some heads on the platform itself.
I feel like everyone here had some Shmup Junkie. I know that he shouted out Shield Made before. Dead End City, I know, has at least been in some upcoming games.
Shmup Junkie.
I know that neither of you guys had the caravan experience that Operation S.T.E.E.L had, but you definitely had like some Shmup Junkie. Like, I guess I would ask is, okay, beyond that, like beyond the Discords, like Reg, I know you were kind of one hand in Discord, but I don't feel like you were as deep as like Ben was, as far as like shilling the game and getting feedback. I feel like you were more working back channels and thinking about it a little differently. What would you say was different about your approach than Ben's approach, if anything? I mean, if it's the same approach, let me know. But I'm just curious how you differ with the Dead End City sort of like lead up to release and any other marketing pieces that you did other than just kind of junky Discord and some other, I don't think we really didn't have events, right? Dead End City. I mean, I know we did a community, but like we didn't have like a caravan or anything.
I had done a release trailer that was at one of the Shmup slams, the one from last summer, I think.
That's what we're looking for.
So basically, I got invited into one of the other Shmup forum, not
yeah, sure,
not Shmup Junkies.
There's others.
And so I hung out there probably for a good 6 months into development, and got a lot of feedback there, and met a bunch of people, and started like hanging out there more, and became kind of part of that Discord. But I wasn't really in Shmup Junkies Discord until I was closer to launch, and that's when I was talking to you more and trying to get people to play the game and get some really hard feedback and just decide if the game was ready or if it needed more time. But in the meantime, I really just did tweets, and I'm not really that great at Twitter. I am terrible at social media. Like I have no soul for it at all. Like it is the worst kind of work that I would never wish on my worst enemy. Like, it's something I feel like I have to do, but I do it begrudgingly, and I always feel like I look
exactly
at other
the same
people's
way.
tweets. I always look at other people's tweets and think they have more interesting stuff to show, or I just don't know what to take from my stuff that is going to grab people. And the stuff that takes off, the stuff that takes off, I don't know why. And I feel like Ben said, it's just luck. Like, you're in the right place at the right time, you hit the right rush hour traffic crowd happening to catch you on their feed. And even now, like, it's getting worse and worse. It feels like I don't even know if I'm on new people's feeds. I feel like I'm just in an echo chamber of the people I liked and follow, and those aren't the people I need to reach. Those are people who already know I'm there and already know what I'm making, and are probably just like, stop tweeting your work in progress, just release it already so I can play it. I mean, if they care. And I don't know, I kind of just ignore Facebook because it's just evolved in a way that makes me not want to go on it. I don't know how to do Instagram with the kind of content I make, and I don't know how to do TikTok the same way. Like, it would take me days of working on videos and decent trailers and all of that, and I would honestly rather just be spending that time making the game, and making the game better, making the art for it, coming up with some new code I need, like working out a problem I have, trying to get the game ready. So, like, I really appreciate when I have a publisher that does all of that stuff, but
I was just going to say that you sound like the perfect candidate to collaborate with somebody that enjoys
is passionate
that,
about
right?
that. Yeah,
Or,
someone who likes doing that. Like, they would love to help you. You would love to get the help. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to hear from Michiel on this, because I feel like you do a lot of the things that these two guys have just been like, this is all soul crushing, awful stuff for them. I feel like for you, maybe you're slightly more balanced in your approach, but I've definitely seen tweets. I've seen Instagram stuff. Tell us a little bit about, do you feel like the social media stuff is worth it? Do you feel like you just do it because you enjoy it, you want to show off the game? I really liked one of the things that Reg said is like, why would they be interested in this car shmup? Like, is that as interesting as someone posting their, I don't know, ultra sick, regressive, ray traced model for whatever it is, that's like getting, a million retweets or whatever, or someone else, posting something that is more in pop culture, like, hey, I got Yuzo Koshiro to do a thing, like, all right, cool, that's gonna get like 20, versus like, hey, I'm making a shmup kind of thing. So what's kind of your angle on this? Because I feel like you've got a different, or at least a wider spectrum of social media presence than what I'm hearing from the other two that we've heard on from Dosar.
Yeah, so I have a little bit of background in game marketing, of course, working at Nintendo. I wasn't in the marketing department, but in the online content department, so we worked together a lot with marketing. So some of that filth has rubbed off on me, of course, a little bit. And yeah, it's this thing where I don't really love just the concept or the idea of marketing or trying to sell people and stuff, but I'm very proud of the game that we've made. So I love rubbing it on, like bring it to people's attention and telling about it. Um, so in that sense, I think I'm quite into it. It's this whole thing because this is such an exciting project to work on. Just making our first game and putting it out, and then just making something that we genuinely feel very proud of. That everything else that's related to it is also all of a sudden much more interesting to me than it would otherwise would be.
'Cause your
Even
baby,
the
yeah.
really boring and dry stuff like forming a company became
Yeah.
more interesting because look at the kind of company we're making. So that already got me way more invested than I otherwise would be. But yeah,
And
I
we
mean,
didn't tweet that much about forming a company as well.
no, exactly, no. But yeah, I mean, just creating the actual content, like what do we show people, like what interesting stuff can we show people? Yeah, that remains kind of challenging. But on the upside, now, especially now that Johannes is sorry, Alter, bleep,
Doxed.
bleep that, doxed. There it goes.
I'll bleep that out. Don't worry.
So
It's fine. It's fine.
especially
Okay.
the now that Alter has a lot more work to do on the game than I do. All my design work is done. I don't do a lot of stage design work anymore either. I actually have the time now to
Well, it's two-person team, a little different, right? Than
exactly
Pixel
to
Liquor,
Yeah.
sole
pursue
proprietorship,
people,
and
yeah, send out review codes, think of stuff to post on social media. Yeah, I can more fully focus on that now.
And I'm super thankful that Mikhail is doing that so much, because I would be in the same shoes as you guys that really don't enjoy that. Right? I mean, maybe I would enjoy it, but I'm not passionate about it
Right.
at all.
Yeah, and then it takes. It's good that I have the time to do it, or I make the time to do it, because it's not something that you can easily just do next to actual game development. I think because it takes a lot of determination and trying out new things. Like for example, I saw this guy on Twitter who made Mile High Taxi. It's called, I think. It's a crazy taxi game, but then crazy
Fifth
taxi
Element.
sort of is inspired game, but then like the Fifth Element or like Blade Runner, like flying cars through
nice.
through cityscapes, and it looked really cool. And I just basically stole his idea of putting out a tweet saying, "Hey, who do you think should definitely review or cover our game?" Tag them in a reply, and then then we will give away 2 keys for people that bring us more coverage per day. So that did fairly well, and you try out certain things, and we got new leads. I got new people to send review codes to. Got some new contacts out of that. And a lot of random stuff, because then I'm on social media all the time. So all of a sudden I saw like a very prolific game journalist that I never figured to be much of a shmup connoisseur getting involved in a conversation about Battle Garega and Battle Backrate. And I was thinking, so I just went out, let me send this guy an email. Hey, so I didn't know you were so deep into your Shootemups. Here's a review code. I don't know if you still write about games these days, because now he's a published author. He publishes novels and all that. But it would be cool if you would play our game. And to my surprise, he told us like, "Oh, no, I actually already bought the game, so keep the code for somebody else. And I'm really loving it, and this and that. And I want to feature it on my podcast. And it's a lot of that, just and every time I'm seeing things like this, I'm taking a personal approach. I'm not sending out like wholesale emails to 1,000 addresses or content creators or all that. I'm just going for specific targets all the time and trying to strike up personal conversations, because I have the time to do that pretty much, and the jury is very much still out about how successful that approach is. Because we just put out our game on Steam, and a lot of the things that I'm doing right now have yet to show their effect. That's I'm enjoying it. You know, I'm enjoying trying to solve those puzzles and see if we can make some headway there.
What's your
Maybe one interesting thing that we saw happening
Yeah.
was there was one bigger streamer that played Shootemups on this stream, and how many subs does he have? Like 80K or something. So,
Mike
so
Matei?
much larger than,
That's
than
him,
what
yeah.
we're usually doing with streamers that are specializing on shmups, right? People like this or Act, of course. And that big stream or bigger stream that brought exactly nothing and like zero wishlists.
Really? The
resulting
Mike
from
Matei,
that.
the
Yeah,
Mike
yeah.
Matei stream? That's so funny.
Yeah.
Yes.
At
yes.
least,
I mean, obviously,
yeah.
obviously, it could have happened afterwards. That's hard to determine, but not during. And then other days,
Sure.
you see somebody stream the game who has like 5 viewers, and you get 2 purchases because the people are just like, hey, this is up my alley. Let me get that, right?
I'm pretty sure the last
Yeah.
time I
Very
streamed the
interesting to
game, I
see.
was complaining about the game the entire time, and I'm pretty sure you got some wish lists out of that. There were a lot of people who were
Yeah.
like,
We
"This
got-
looks
we-
awesome."
We got a couple
True.
of people deleting their wish list, so maybe that was.
Negative wish list numbers that went down. Oh no. No. I mean that's kind of the thing, right? That's interesting. You know,
Yeah.
I have some thoughts here, but we're not here for my thoughts. So the question. The question I was going to pose to you, Mikhail, coming based on what you said, is: do you have a threshold for you? You mentioned this, right? And I want to ask everyone this: do you have a threshold or a framework for who gets a key, who should just be buying the game, right? Like we're so small here at this point, right? That like you give out 10 keys, if those 10 dudes bought the game, that's like groceries for the week. Like you're talking, you know, I mean, maybe Steam's not giving you as much as I think they are, which is a whole other thing, which is itch versus Steam, and itch gives you maybe a little more total in your bank, and Steam gives you maybe a little bit less based on the cut that they're taking, but Steam actually reaches people and itch doesn't. And so, but do you have like an approach to like who gets a free key versus who is like, yeah, that's great, you're gonna recommend the game to them and be like, hey, if you really like it, just maybe like kick us 2 coffees and then play it?
I'm personally more interested in more people playing the game and getting some more
Okay.
word of mouth rolling to have some sort of to create some sort of effect later on. You know, I'm not too bothered about those 2 or 3 extra sales a week. So, but of course, this is quite an interesting dynamic. It's very strange. Like you get all these emails, especially at Steam launch, with a lot of curators and streamers that want 4 or 5 keys or something to share with their team and all that. And most of them
Share
are
with their
pretty
team. It's not a multiplayer game. What the hell does that
No,
mean?
exactly. And most of them are pretty scammy emails, you know. And I did a lot of research into this, and I found out a lot more about it.
Did you send some keys to some scams? Do you think?
I said that actually, of all the emails we got, nothing to scams. Of all the emails that we got, I picked out 2 people with very small follower lists on Steam because they seemed genuine to me. And when I looked at the games they covered, hey, they wrote reviews on several Shootemups, and those
Yeah,
2 people turned out to be
95%
genuine as well.
of the others you can just throw out. It's
You
scams
can
anyways.
just throw out, yeah. So you get this very interesting dynamic.
99.9. That's
Something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
depending. Yeah.
So you get this very interesting dynamic where people are hounding you for keys and you're not giving it to them, but at the same time you're hounding other people like, hey, please play my game and do a review on it or do a stream on it. So it's this sort of weird, like one-way street kind of thing that you find yourself in. So you're hounding other people, and
Yeah.
and some people are hounding you, and you're not giving them the time of day.
Now, I feel like Shieldmate, I've seen, like you said, it's been on my streams, Des streams. We did like the fun release kind of kumite and stuff, which I had a blast doing, and that was just my pleasure, honestly, you know. But because it's a fun way to explore a new game, especially. But you know, so I've seen Shieldmate. You know, I've live seen it on streams here and there. I've seen it in places. You know, Reg, what do you do you believe in like Twitch streaming as an approach in the way that Michiel just mentioned, as far as like trying to get it in the hands of like smaller streamers, or do you see it streaming as an approach at all in your marketing strategy?
I mean, I would love to see more Twitch streamers streaming my game, but unfortunately, like a lot of the streaming culture is just totally outside of my orbit. Like, I'm that's just not what I am as a gamer. It's not where I hang out. So it's a completely foreign thing that
it's like uncomfortable for you to understand like where you would go to get to accomplish that goal.
Yeah, I just don't know where to start. And really, I would say Discord. I am super comfortable being in a community on Discord, and the Shmup community was so good about lifting the game up when it came out, and even just on the lead up, getting enough like positive feedback and getting a lot of just positive energy from everyone. I did not expect that, and I would say, especially for a niche genre like Shmups, find those communities, get into them, and see about like using that push to get your game in front of people. Because I think I hit my, like within a week, I had my 12 reviews. Like people I've been talking to during development were there to help. You were definitely there to help, like get the game in shape at the end and get the word out and do any kind of streaming push, or I don't know, just it's just not a space I know where to go. Like I have no idea who to talk to about getting them to do coverage. And even Shmup Junkie, like he's just busy with a lot of his own stuff, and so
he's not. I wouldn't call him a streamer at all, right? It's like he is at best an influencer, right? So I think he's. I don't know that he's ever really streamed, but no, that's okay. No, you're free to speak about him in the same Venn diagram. But it is. But I even with like a Shmup Junkie, it's like he's gonna maybe say it's gonna be a 10-second stinger in the back of like a here's, it's not like he hasn't like reviewed Dead End City in like an hour review. He hasn't. I don't think he's done the same for Shieldmate or Operation Steel. So it's not the same.
He doesn't really do reviews
right.
anymore anyway. It's kind of like
he did that earlier on with those indie shmup games that you must play. He did a few.
He would do a little bit of that, and then I think
but
like
now he's doing more the larger video projects. So.
Yeah, and I think
like
he's something like
documentary format now.
Totally,
and
that's what he's good
great.
at.
And it's awesome to watch too. And I kind of feel like there aren't enough people doing the good like in-depth review or here's a game you need to play that have that kind of following. Like he's built up enough of an audience where it probably makes a dent in getting your game noticed by people or just getting the word out.
Yeah.
But then where do you find more of those people? Like I don't know anyone on Twitch, even just doing cold searches for people. There's just nobody who's playing that stuff unless they're already in the Shmup community. Like
well,
they're the same people you see on the Discord,
right? I think we should workshop this a little bit. I wanna go off the reservation and instead of asking for answers or experiences, I want to workshop this a little bit because I think that we all could kind of come up with something because, with our collective brain powers, right? I feel like so one, there's obviously Shmup Junkie. There's Mark. The Electric Underground, but we know that Shmup Junkie, his style of delivery is positive. Shmups first. Like, if there's a memo Shmup that's just like a nightmare to play, Shmup Junkie will make it seem like the best thing in the world, and then you'll go to play it and just get your ass kicked, and you'll be like, God damn it, Shmup Junkie. Why did I? But it's like he's very, then there was Bullet Heaven, which is now I think somewhat defunct, but I think there's another series coming up from Ed, so I don't want to like write him off. I think there's more going on there behind the scenes, but Bullet Heaven I think had enough viewership that if you got a game on Bullet Heaven, you're probably reaching some folks. But no, that's kind of like
definitely
a little bit.
Definitely the Shootemup
Shootemup fans, right? But like to your point, so we've got Shmup Junkie, we have maybe like a Mike Matei or other retro style, like for example, like when something like the Evercade comes out, Digital Foundry is going to do a thing on the Evercade. Now a portion of that's going to be Philios and Shmups and things like that. The other portion is going to be other games in the Evercade. But my point is, I think there's a Venn diagram. There's like this retro Shmups Venn diagram that for some reason, and I don't really know the reason, that doesn't intersect as much as it should, right? Like, I
Well,
feel like
that's because there's niches in the shmup community. There's the Danmaku people. There's the I will die on the greatest and R-Type are the best games ever
Yeah.
made hill
Yes.
people. There are Toho people who are their own people. And then there are people who are just, I liked playing shooters and I wanted to make one and I want people to like them, but I'm not trying to be Cave. I'm not trying to be Toho. I'm not trying to be R-Type and Gradius. And the people who seem to do coverage from my limited exposure to people making video content is that those people who just want to play retro-inspired stuff are invisible. Like, you can't find them. I don't know where they are.
They've got to be there, though.
Because
we got to figure this
enough content
Right.
for the marks, and I'm not making the retro games that have, you know,
Right.
some sort of nostalgia factor that
Cachet.
keeps the games awesome for these other people. Like, so where do you find the people who are just still excited to try new stuff in the vein of old stuff, but not old stuff like Cave only, or not old stuff that's I like Garega, or not old stuff that I like Konami, why don't they make good games anymore? Like,
Well,
there's
yeah.
got to be some other coverage, and I wish I could find those people. I'd love to give them a copy of my game.
It's fascinating, right? Because there's games that you know, I feel like not 10 years ago. Actually, no, let's go with 10 years ago. I feel like 10 years ago, any of your games like that currently came out, I'm talking about Shieldmate MX, Dead End City, Operation Steel. If any of those came out during the indie sort of that boom, right? The like Fez, Braid.
The Fez era, yeah.
The Fez era, right? Fez, Braid, Binding of Isaac, Super Meat Boy. That era, you know, of games, and found their way to PAX or whatever, I think it would have hit. Like, I think now it's changed to me where it's like like a Giant Bomb or an IGN, they definitely cover indie games that are similar to the games you guys are making, but the games that I see them covering now at this point are like either ultra high quality art, like to the level where it's just like they're trying to like pave some crazy new foundation for gaming art, or they're so off the beaten path that they kind of have to cover it because it's so weird. It's like, oh, this is going to be good content for them to cover. And I think, like post this indie boom, anything that's retro inspired that isn't like one of those two things of like way weird or like super beautiful. And I'm not saying you guys' games don't look good. Everybody's games here looks. In fact, Dead End City, the pixel art's fantastic, like incredibly good in Dead End City.
Oh, thank you.
It really is. I mean, it's like the animations that you've done are like. They are so reminiscent. I mean, even Ben would admit, we've talked about your art, Ben. You don't even like your art. I love your art, but but I know that the exactly. The animation's different than I think. Everyone's doing different art here. Literally, all three of your games are completely different art styles. Completely different. Like Ben's is kind of like high def, hand drawn, digital art. You've got pixel art, Reg, on your game. Shieldmate MX is like high tech, the 2D plus lighting engines. You know, like Shieldmate MX reminds me of the evolution of pre-rendered art. Like if pre-rendered art didn't look like garbage, which it often does, especially as you scale it up, it would be Shieldmate, right? Like it's like that vibe of art where it's like when the pre-rendered art first started coming out, Mikhail, when we were growing up and shit, like we were like, oh, this looks real. Like, you know, now it looks like ass, right? Like, but the pixel art still looks great. But Shieldmate, you know,
unless you play it on a good CRT monitor, it can still.
No, Donkey Kong Country
cool.
Never looked good.
I was just gonna say Donkey Kong Country is like,
I mean,
you know,
it looked really good.
Mortal Kombat looks great. But that's just a video you're watching. You know, that's not even art at that point. But anyways, I guess like I'm trying to figure out how to get to the Giant Bombs and the IGNs of the world with this piece because. You know, it took a little bit of time for them to even get into fighting games, and eventually they had to answer. Like, Evo started getting so big, like, they had to, like, have a fighting game person on staff because it was just too much to ignore. At some point, they had to bring on, like, a visual novel person because there were so many freaking visual novels, and people started really enjoying them. And it was like, you have to have someone who's willing to play, you know, Daddy Daycare or whatever, like, you know,
so
is out.
We basically
like,
have to start flooding the market. So instead of telling
Maybe.
people, no, don't make a shmup, we should tell everybody to make a shmup so they can't can no longer
They
ignore
can
it.
no
Ignore
longer.
it anymore.
Yeah.
We got a Shmup
Yeah.
version of that again. Yeah.
Well, I think that's a fascinating approach, and I think because ultimately,
I'll-
if you take like all of your games and you take them out of the hardcore context, like some portions of the game are most portions of the game are going to be lost on your typical indie gamer, like just completely, right? They're not going to get it, or if they do get it, they'll get it over time. It'll take them some time to understand, and if they even stick with the game that long. But as far as just like going through the game, which is what a typical indie gamer does, right? They're not gonna sit down with a game for 40. I mean, Risk of Rain comes along, you get hooked, fine, I get it. But like your typical indie game, Katana Zero, or you pick up, it's a Steel. What's the other? Steel Assault or whatever. Like it's something like that. You're gonna 5 hours max. You got through it. Even something like The Messenger, which is a pretty long, crazy game. Like a lot of people love that game. I can guarantee you, like 10% of those people actually got through the entire game, of The Messenger. They're like, oh, cool, this is Ninja Gaiden. Like, and so there's got to be some way to, like, lift it up so it can stand toe to toe. So like Operation Steel can be next to The Messenger, and like Shield Maid MX can be next to the other indie games that are out there that are like point and click resource farmers, and stuff like that. Like,
Where do we even start with this conversation? Because Shootemups kind of have a stigma of being very hardcore games that a lot of people just hearing about it makes them feel intimidated.
Let me ask you this
Like,
question.
I could never play one of these bullet hell games. Or
Totally,
something
but
like
but
that.
but
Yeah.
I'm gonna presuppose that I'm gonna say that I disagree with you in this particular exact context. I don't think that the average person would be able to make the judgment that the game is too difficult, because I don't think the average person knows what a shoot 'em up is at all. A modern take on shoot 'em up. Like they know Space Invaders. Everybody
It depends
knows
on the
Space
age
Invaders.
group. It depends on your age group.
Everybody knows Space Invaders and Galaga. Like they get that. But Dodonpachi, no way. Like, but Bullet Hell, they might have heard. If you say Bullet Hell, they might have heard that in a ultra hard game context. But if you just say, "Hey, I made a shoot 'em up," are they gonna really say like, "Oh, that's probably too hard for me," or are they gonna really just more have a question mark and be like, "What does that mean?" Like when people picked up Binding of Isaac or or something like that, which is pretty close to a shoot 'em up, right? Or like Next
Enter the
Machina,
Dungeon.
Resogun, yeah,
Yeah.
those games.
Near Automata, which has a lot of
Nier, which
elements.
is Nier is the Trojan horse example. That's the other way I was gonna
Yeah.
go, which is like, all right,
Yeah.
dude, we just need to put Shmups in Mario. We should need to get fucking Shmups in Zelda. We should just Trojan horse them into the side of every type of game. Just stick them in the back, and then when people are like, I want more of this part of this game, then you go, I know where to take you.
But that didn't work because the
No.
only part of Kingdom Hearts I liked was the gummy ship parts.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
they didn't make a gummy ship game for me, so
Ah.
I just said, sorry, I can't play this anymore. Because
best-
the other part of this game is absolutely boring.
The best parts of Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts are when you're racing your car around the track. So, but ultimately you had to platform, so you had to stop and go play Gran Turismo. But anyways, but Alter, no, you make a good point. But it's like, but the Nier Automata. But okay, going back to like a Binding of Isaac or a Next Machina or like other popular, very Fury, it's close to shmup games. How come people don't see them and aren't intimidated by them in the same way as like a Bullet Hell? Or what do you think is that mental barrier? Mikhail, I know since you brought up the comment, like, or do you feel like tell me more about that?
I think it's an overall stigma, and it makes look at just how completely oversaturated the gaming market in general is. Often we find ourselves looking for excuses not to play certain games, so we can just safely ignore that whole part because there's already so much to take in.
True. That's a personal choice, right? You play the thing you like, yeah.
Exactly. So it's an easy way to sort of stigmatize and discard an entire genre of games, I guess. And what I would love for people to play more shoot 'em ups, because I think they don't have to be like, a lot of people are just super intimidated by them. But there's a very primal sort of fun and enjoyment you can have out of them without even trying to get into the mechanical nitty gritty or layered scoring systems or anything like that. Just the simple act of your projectile hitting a small enemy and seeing it pop real nice. That's just like, I often liken it, for example, like if you shoot a whole row of Zako, for example, it's a similar sensation to me as making a chain combo in an action puzzle game, for example. That's super
Hitting like a
satisfaction.
strike in bowling, like you see all those
Yeah,
pins
exactly.
fly
Just
away,
a
and you're like, yeah.
Exactly, just a very super satisfying primal sort of action. And because it's so distilled, it's instant. A shoot 'em up can be instant gratification because it's so condensed. It's so focused.
Which should be something that is clicking with a lot of especially younger folks, right?
Yeah, exactly. So
They're
I
all
want
about that.
I want to kind of try, at least for as limited as we can do that, kind of try and break that stigma. And I've seen it happen with people that are completely ignorant and unaware of shoot 'em ups as a genre, that I have sat down to play our game, and they were surprised how much they enjoyed it. I'd love for our game to be some sort of gateway drug into the genre, and all of our games to have that sort
Yeah.
of effect.
I think I almost think I agree with that. I almost think that's problematic, and I'll explain why I think that's problematic. Because I don't think that how should I say this? For example, when I played Super Meat Boy and I was like, wow, this is really good, right? I didn't go, let me go find all the platformers and start playing them. When I played Cuphead, and I was like, oh my god, this is really good. I didn't like go buy a copy of Contra 3. I was like, Cuphead's really good. But I didn't start to like go deep into run and guns, and I didn't buy like 30 run and guns and get into the genre of run and guns. I didn't like go get Metal Slug, right, for example, after playing Cuphead, because and the reason I say that is because I feel like a lot of the games that we have could probably do better detached, to your point, from the shoot 'em up. Not the stigma necessarily, because they are shoot 'em ups, right, obviously, but detached from that like, hey, they came from this hardcore community. And I think part of what you're saying is making a lot of sense to me, because I think about, okay, what are like the videos that Shmup Junkie got super famous on, like started his channel, right? Top 5 hardest shoot 'em ups on X. Top 5 games that are gonna bust your balls on Y. Then after a while, he was like, oh, let me do some beginner tutorials, because this is like all like totally hardcore. Marcus is kind of a similar thing, where he's sort of like, oh, let me do some beginner tutorials, but a lot of it's like for really hard games, really hard goals, like impossible goals for most people, that he's tutorializing the most impossible thing for most people. And I think maybe if that's what people are seeing of shmups, of course they're like, oh my god, that's not for me, right? Like, totally. But I don't think that, I don't think that the run and gun community, or like, the platforming community, or what have you, the Mario community, for example, I don't know that, like the Kaizo community or whatever, or like the true kind of, way that Super Meat Boy made its way in, or, or Cuphead, or what have you. So I almost like, I like the idea of Shield Made MX being gateway to the genre, but it's better than 99 games in the genre. So honestly, they're gonna play Shield Made MX, they're gonna jump into Gradius 5, they're gonna get their ass kicked on stage 1 like I did, they're gonna be like, damn, I'm not sure I like shmups, but Shield Made MX is great. Like, so it's like, I would love for that to be a gateway into the genre, but I almost feel like we shouldn't think about our games that way. We should just think about them as like indie games in a vacuum, not shoot 'em ups, as far as like representing something,
Well, you
Yeah,
have to also
sure.
bring something new to the table. I mean, if everybody is just making the same kind of shoot 'em up, then it will feel like, oh, I got past this one gateway thing that was different, and now I'm just presented with a field of something that isn't what I just played. Like, I look at a lot of stuff that I'm recommended on Steam, and it's just
From
the
shmups?
same
Uh-oh.
kind of no, I mean, it's either
Yeah, I know.
like very cave inspired
Yeah.
hardcore scoring systems and learning how to macro micro dodge, or it's Toho. Like, I'm leaning really hard into waifus, or the moe trends of the early aughts, or the whatever. Like, it's people wanting to take their stab at that stuff, and it's not people trying to go, oh, here's something new. Like, Shieldmade is different. Like,
Super fresh.
it's you can say it's a shmup, but it is a gateway, because it takes what would normally be frustrating to new people and makes it so much easier to play. Like, if you want to get into the hard technical stuff in it, yeah, it's challenging. but it isn't asking you to do what 99% of the rest of the genre is asking for. So I think the problem is that the genre needs to keep evolving and offering new stuff. I mean, in the past, I think that's where a lot of the more successful shmups, you know, got their footing and climbed above the rest. It wasn't just, oh, I made the same thing, but mine has prettier art, or, you know,
Yeah, everything had like a
or I
little
got
tiny
the
hook
right
to it, like
system at the
something
time.
different.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything fundamentally wrong with wanting to make more of the same if that's
Oh,
what
no,
you
no,
like,
I'm not
right?
saying that's wrong either.
But yeah, but there's already this huge corpus of exactly those things, right? So setting out to make another R-type or whatever
and
doesn't
also,
make that much sense, right?
also the distinction is that for a lot of hardcore shoot 'em up enthusiasts, they'll see all the subtle differences and the different kind of strands of inspirations from different kind of bullet patterns and all that. And oh, this is an interesting sort of subsystem scoring mechanic. But yeah, for a more general public, it's like you say, Reggie. Yeah, they won't see those differences, and the little innovations are marginal to them.
Yeah.
It all looks the same from the outside, right? I
Yeah,
used to get that a lot when playing fighting games. Like
Yes.
Tekken and Street Fighter is the same thing to people
Yeah.
that don't play those games, right? I know, but
God, no.
Especially
that's what
now
it
when
is,
they're
yeah.
both 3D. Like at least
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
at
yeah,
least
yeah.
in like the 90s it was like, well, Tekken's 3D. Street Fighter looks different. I know the
Yes.
difference between the two. This one throws fire. This one has Ryu. This one doesn't have Ryu. But now it's like, whatever. Akuma's in Tekken. It's over. Like
Yeah,
it's done.
I was just
We're out
gonna
of
say,
there.
yeah.
Yeah.
No,
But,
it actually is. The
It
same
actually
thing now.
is. No, but that's an interesting point. You know, I think all of the games here, like Dead End City, everybody's always been asking, Mad Max shmup, car shmup. How come no one ever made one? Oh my God. You know, of course, you know, Reggie, you got into it, and it was like, this is why you make your 1941 comment, because 1941 is a Capcom air shmup, but you can run into the walls, and that's actually a big part of playing that game, because when you run into the walls, your plane spins around and shoots bullets everywhere and all this kind of stuff, and you get like, what, a couple iframes or something? But
Yeah.
something like that. But the point is that, you know, you set out to make this thing, and you quickly realized, shmups in the air have it so easy. There's like no collisions. Like if a plane flies
God,
into you, you die and crash, and that's fine. But if a motorcycle runs into you as a car and you die and crash, you're kind of like, really? Like that little dirt bike on my big Mad Max vehicle, like that's a little less sellable now suddenly. And so I think that, you know, that's super unique. Shieldmade's extremely unique for a ton of different reasons. The chief among which is like the concept of not dodging bullets but running into them. Let's just put it that way. If you haven't played Shieldmade MX, go play that game, because it is when modern gamers talk about this, modern game reviewers talk about the concept of a gameplay loop, it takes that and puts it into shmups in a way that is so genius to me and so indicative of what the genre can be, but also maintains some of the frustrations, but all of the old school style of like big hitbox, all that kind of stuff. You know, you've got all the old school style of games, but you've got all these innovations. Operation S.T.E.E.L, Ben, you set out to make a game you couldn't find. Like this is, you know, this is genre moving forward. So I you know, to me it's like, it's hard for me to see these games as gateways as much as I just see them as progressions, like innovations. You know, the thing moving forward. You know, and I think what's interesting and what sort of saddens me a little bit is that gaming publications and things like that, they're usually very interested in those stories, especially arcs, right? Like fighting games have an arc where no one gets it, right? But at the same time, like when something comes out and changes the game a little bit, they cover that piece of it. They cover that part of the innovation. They'll cover just that portion of it and say, wow, you know, in this fighting game, you can do this. That's kind of different. And that's it. That's the whole like 2-minute spiel on it, right? But I think like taking like Ben's game, for example, and being like, hey, you guys have played Shootemups before, you guys have played R-Type, but check it out. In this game, there's 1 trillion bullets, but you get all these sick weapons to work with. It's really similar to like your Binding of Isaac or your, you know, your whatever, like, you know, corollaries where you get a ton of different weapons, it's a roguelite, you know, but it's super fun, really direct, great music, all this kind of stuff. And it it's not like the shoot 'em ups you played before. That's kind of the, I'm gonna say it's a selling point, but it's like kind of like the reason why I think all games in this conversation should be covered by indie publications, stuff like that, because frankly, Great Ass 6 made by, you know, an indie dev, that's great. I don't know it's worth covering in that context. It doesn't progress anything forward. It doesn't create something new that, and it might, it maybe does, but the point is that it's not progressing things forward in a way that's editorialable, you know, into a story. That's like, hey, look what the guys over in Shmups are doing over there. That's what happens with fighting games. It was like, why are they excited over there in that Vegas ballroom? Something is happening. We got to be a part of that. Right over there, and I think there's something happening here in Shmups, because I think that it's sort of odd, but I feel like there's a lot of
happening.
There's a lot of indie Shmups coming out.
There is something
Yeah,
happening.
and just to be fair, it's not just the people in this conversation.
Yeah,
It's a lot
of course.
Yeah,
other
exactly.
devs
Absolutely.
as well. Yeah.
The thing that is happening, and this is, you know, I don't want to put the person on the spot, so I'm not going to name him, but there is a certain journalist who writes for big publications who is very much a specialist in the genre. And we've had quite some good contact with him before already. He liked what we were doing. And, you know, a friend of ours, kind of like drew his attention towards us. And he says, like, a lot of the bigger publication that he pitches his freelance stories to are starting to get very interested nowadays in shoot 'em ups, and especially what's happening in the indie community. And the reason I'm not naming him and I don't want to put him on
Don't
the
worry
spot
about it.
is
That's
because
fine.
I want to actually see it happen before
Yeah.
I fully and well believe it. But we had some discussions with him behind the scenes, and he's definitely looking for more stories, and was asking us also for games that he think we should cover, and maybe he wants to do a full story on independently developed shoot 'em ups for some pretty large publications.
I feel like, and I feel like me included, right? I feel like a lot of people joined. Shmup community has been growing for sure. That's just a point blank statement, right? There's people who are into retro games or not into Shmups who are now interested in what's happening. There are people who played Shmups as a kid but never really seriously, who are now rebounding back and going like, oh wait, there's like an actual method to this madness, and it's not just me throwing a quarter in and getting my ass kicked. There's all this stuff happening. I feel like a lot of people jump in, they see the community, you know, they see the DDP 1-alls, like you said, they get a little intimidated, they see a couple things, and I feel like a lot of people, I don't know why, and I'd love to ask everyone this question to see if you guys felt the same way. A lot of people jump into the community, and within like 6 months they go, I want to make something, and I want it to be different in this way. Like, it's everyone. Like, everyone in the community at one point has said, like, no, I want to make a game, and it's got to be like this. What do you think is about, like, Shmups that makes people want to make their own version of one? Like, Ben, maybe start with you. Like, I don't know if you felt the same way, but what do you... I feel like I've seen this all... Like, why the hell did I make a Shmup? Like, I still don't know the answer to that question, but I've made, like, 2 now, technically. Like, 2 to 3, like, you know, little demos or whatever you want to call it. But, like, you know, me aside, what do you think it is about this community? Because in fighting games community, you don't get people come in and within 6 months they go, ah, man, Street Fighter sucks, I could do better. Like, or like, I have a twist on this. Like, they go, like, that sounds hard, I'm not touching that. Like,
Not really. Yeah.
so what do you, Ben, what do you think in your end? Like, why do you think that it's special in that way?
I don't know if it's the community specifically, but maybe just the framework for a shmup is such a simple thing. It's like auto-scrolling and you shoot something. It allows people to put their own, like, everyone's got their own dream combination of gameplay elements that they want in a shmup, perhaps. And I guess it's also like my first game kind of thing. A lot of people might make a shoot 'em up as their first game, just because it is such a simple framework that you can put something together fairly easily. Just that simple fact makes it that anyone could make a shmup, and many people do. Or at least, you know, a lot of people, I always see people like will have ideas, at least in the shmup community, for what they want to make in a shmup, even if not everyone's doing it, but everyone's got their own ideas of what should be in a shmup.
crazy thing was that I never wanted to make a shoot 'em up because I love the genre so much, and I thought you have these masters in Japan that have been honing their skills and iterating and fine-tuning these games to perfection. That I was thinking we could never compare to that, you know. So,
Which is
yeah,
why we try to make something different and not something better, right?
I think so. I think that's a main motivator also why we thought like let's at least add something new to the genre, you know.
It's
Even
funny
if
you
we
say
can't
that.
compete at that level.
When I started, I wasn't as into shmups as I came. So it was not knowing that much, I think, which probably is why I started. And then I did the deep dive after I started making my own, and just realized how many great games there are out there.
That's really cool because it was the same situation for me. But then, of course, I had Michiel, who I didn't have to make that deep dive myself. I just had somebody tell me all the things that I didn't know.
Sherpa. Yeah, don't step
And
on
then
that. Don't step on that
sometimes-
rock. You're not ready for that rock yet. Just
Yeah,
go over here to this one.
Exactly. And then sometimes I'd post something on the Discord without getting proper instructions beforehand. And yeah, you know how that can turn out.
That's right.
Yeah.
What do you think,
Uh,
Alter? What do you think it is about? I mean, do you? I don't know if you've seen this behavior in the community, but do you think it's similar to what Ben said around? It's just quite a simple concept to make your own, or do you feel like what do you feel compels people to want to have their own flavor of this one thing?
It's interesting, isn't it? Like, definitely. I mean, making a shmup is definitely one of the easier games that you can make, right? Everybody.
My
would,
first game. Should have think.
agree on that. Yeah, exactly. And making a good shmup, of course, is something completely different. And then making a good product on top of that adds another 500% of work. Yeah, I've never seen that happen in the not never. I've rarely seen that happen in the fighting game community. When you see indie fighting games, which is a rare thing in the first place, they tend to be something radically different from the big games that are being played. I'm guessing a big difference between those two particular genres is that fighting games obviously are a competitive genre, so there can only be that many games that can be played at the same time because you need a certain threshold of players that are playing, and with maps you don't necessarily have that. There could be one person playing Cross Gunner for the rest of their life, and they'd be content. Don't need anybody to play it with. But you also don't. I mean, you see people obviously making indie RPGs, indie hack and slays, what have you. But considering how small the shmup community is, it does stand out how many people want to get involved with that. Not sure what the right answer is beyond what BB said.
What do you think, Reg? You got any thoughts on this?
I mean, I agree with what everyone's saying.
Yeah.
It's definitely, from the outside, the framework seems simpler. I mean, there's definitely
On the surface, yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely approaches to programming them, though, that you realize once you start getting into the nuts and bolts that you can go a lot of ways, and there are more optimal ways to go. But there are also ways that, like, you can program certain things, like, say, enemy spawning. People might just have different ways of thinking about it. So different approaches just click with the way some people's brains work. But looking at how old games are, you start realizing you have a lot of really simple pieces to work with or aspects to tweak, but coming up with compelling ways to mix and match those things and make the game fun for people, it's really hard. And you know, I come from an art background, so for me, making the art stand out is a big thing. But you know, there are sound people who dedicate their lives to learning how to make compelling sound effects or music. There are coders who can add, you know, little tweaks to the code that actually make things pop for players. Like, learning how to make all those things as a solo dev, at least, is really hard. And you get better each game, and you know, you do the best you can, and the next game maybe you improve on some of that. But I think that's like trying to get all those pieces to gel really well is the hardest part. So it seems simple on the surface, but then once you actually have to put all those pieces together, you might make the greatest formations flying on the screen, but if shooting down those formations isn't satisfying, it doesn't matter. If you make the most awesome explosion and sound effect for it, but it's really boring to shoot like the formations, then again, you kind of failed. Like you have to get all those parts to work, to orchestrate well. And I think that's the hardest part of shmups, because it's so simple that messing up any aspect of that
Sticks
it
out.
just it totally ruins the whole like immersion of it, right?
Yeah,
it's
and that's
like
why I love
if you
playing
set out,
arcade.
if you set out to make a good Tetris-like or whatever, it's probably
Yeah.
not going to be good.
I mean, I know a lot of people who started programming just by trying to do match 3 games. Like that was
Yeah.
their starting point. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, well, anyone can learn how to make a match 3 game and make logic for it, but you have to make it fun, or you have to have a wrinkle in the system that sets you apart from just being a columns or a, you know, or yeah, another Tetris or any other match 3 game like a Candy Crush or something. But in shooters, it's so, I don't know, it's so basic that if you don't come up with a compelling way to get people to engage in that time-honored tradition of make bullets hit bad guys, they go boom, then yeah, it doesn't fly.
And art is a great hook to start with. I mean, your pixel art is superb.
Oh, thank
And,
you.
like, even if the game really sucked, which it doesn't, but if it did, it would still be fun in the beginning, right? I would still look at it and enjoy it. And
Yeah.
if it's a good game, I stick with it and not refund it. But it's definitely
Classic
great to
Alter.
have this first talk. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's so. Oh, so many places we could talk forever. But I think that's an interesting point, right? Because I was testing Cross Gunner with a friend of mine who doesn't kind of like plays retro games, you know, but like didn't, you know, he's not like a schmupper. He's just like, yeah, sure, like, you know, he'll sit down and like beat an NES Castlevania or something. He likes Metroid, you know. He knew of Rekka, so he's like not like, you know, he knows of these games, but he doesn't like sit down and beat them. He's never once CC'd a shmup or anything like that. And I'm just throwing Cross Gunner at him, and you know, it's so funny because he played early versions of the first game, and he was like, sell this on Steam, like, and I was like, relax, relax, buddy. But he's like, he had difficulty describing what he liked about the game. You know, I was like, what do you like, what you don't like what, you know, get some feedback. And he's just like, dude, it just feels good. Like, it just feels good. Like, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, he's like, you're shooting things down. I mean, he's like, I think part of him was astonished that I made a game, because there was always that, right? It's like, you know, when you give your
And that's
friend
amazing. Yeah.
when you give your friend your first game, and they know you as a person, and then they see the game and it's a game, you know, and it's not like a game, but it's a game, and they're like playing it and actually like there's an ounce of fun, and not just like, oh, my friend made this thing, and now I'm gonna, you know, hit some keys and hey, nice shot. Like, it's like, you know, there's that. I think that kind of overcame him a little bit. But when I asked him, I was like, what do you think is good? He's just like, I think you just nailed the balance. It just seems like you know what's fun, and it was one of those funny things of just like, yeah, it's interesting thing to try to articulate. And Boghog has done a great job. I want to plug his series here. Chrisman's series on Pico 8 is amazingly good too, but Boghog has done a great job on his channel. I'll probably link it below for other indie devs, just breaking down what makes, and he does slant, you know, Reg, to your point, he does slant harder on the bullet hell style of gameplay. So, you know, Dead End City doesn't, which I think is what makes it interesting in a lot of ways. Neither does Shieldmate in a lot of ways. But point is, he's trying to distill some of those elements of what makes things feel good, what makes things fun. You know, not even from like a, hey, here's a cool pattern or a bad pattern or whatever, but just like what makes shmups fun on a base, you know, base instinct level. But, you know, Reg, I'll ask you this. I'll give you everyone this sort of last question. Is, you know, we could be here forever talking about games, but what we're really here for is I want to make sure that people get insight if they want to start this journey for themselves, like, or if they feel like they're at the cusp of starting this journey. Maybe they've made a game jam game. Maybe they want to make a bigger shmup. Maybe they don't know how to dev and they're just sort of like looking at the genre like we were talking about earlier and going like, I know I want something with a big laser and I want to have bullet cancels, but then I don't want to have chains because I hate chains, and I'm not going to have collisions because I don't like, they just want to mix it, you know, like Ben said, they want to mix and match their favorite elements. They want to put their stamp on it. What would be your kind of general advice to specifically making a shmup? Not so much the community pieces, I know we talked about it, but more just on the like side of making a game, like deving a video game from like just like the design element. It could be something design related, or it could be like wrapping up a music person. All of the three of you, studio wise, all the four of you technically, people wise, all have external musicians that you brought in for music. Like there's all these different things, choices that you made. What would you say if you're like either an indie shmup developer and you're making your next game, or you're just a person who was kind of interested in indie shmup development? Like where are places you should go? What are things that you should do other than kind of join some discords and play some shmups? Anything more kind of anything deeper? I mean, Reg, you want to start? You were saying some pieces I think
are
that were
you
really
saying
good.
This is someone who's trying to make a living off of the game?
Go with that for you. Go with that for you, because that's your perspective on it. So they want to hear about you because that's what you did. So like, what would you? And be honest. Yeah, be honest.
Well, if you're looking to make something that's going to actually make waves and like get you income, I think you have to really look at how you can bring new people into the genre. And so if what you want to do is ape something that you love about the hardcore side of that genre, you've already done yourself a disservice, because you aren't probably going to be the one to bring in the actual numbers of sales that is going to keep you, fed and clothed, because it's already a niche genre to begin with. So there's only so much of a pool that you're going to be able to get players out of people who already play shmup. So you need to find ways to get a game made that will appeal to a bigger group of people. And so see what I would say, like a lot of what people like Bogog do is where you distill it down into the core essence of what is fun about shmups. Really study that in other games, in other shmups and other genres. Find out what it is that clicks for you, and then see how you can approach that in a way that isn't so demanding on a player, so that they won't feel intimidated. I mean, it's really hard to say, because I personally go to arcade games, I go to MAME, I go to wherever and try to play old stuff, like really old stuff, like 80s stuff that did things really simply, and see what it is that I'm finding fun about it, and see what I'm finding frustrating about it, and sort of pick and choose bits, see if there are ways to combine those bits into a new game, and see if there's, see if you have enough like design sense that you can do something with those elements. Because I think a lot of people, especially in a younger generation, they just weren't exposed to that stuff. So for them, those old game ideas are new. I mean, no matter how many like shmup junkies cover old re-releases or whatever, like there's still people who never actually played those things. So find those old games, figure out what it is you like about them, and see if you can, bring that into a new experience for people. I think it's really hard to say, like, if you just want to make a game and you're like, I love this genre and I'm going to make something for it, and I just want to put it out there and see if people like it, then just follow your instincts and see what it is you enjoy. But if you really think you want to make a go as an indie dev who's trying to make a living at it, it's really hard to justify that unless you have a very like supportive infrastructure at home that can keep you going and can pay the bills and do all that sort of thing. Like if it's all on your shoulders, it's really hard to just say, I have a passion project and I'm just going to make it work. Like I admire the people who can do that and who can, survive on very little and really stretch themselves just to get that done and just to see if their dream project will be a success. but you really have to understand the reality that it's a super flooded market now, and everybody has the same tools available to them, and it's not expensive to be a dev. I mean, not expensive to make the game itself.
To physically code it, yeah. Other than
Yeah,
time and
just
energy, of
like,
course, yeah.
yeah, as long as you have the energy and the drive to actually put in the hours, like, you can make anything. But if you want to make a living off of it, you have to be more mindful of the realities of the market.
Was that like Ori in the Blind Forest? Pretty sure that was made by
That was one dev, right?
one dev, right? Uh-oh, we lost Alter.
I know.
Now, Ori and the Blind Forest was made by an international team as well,
There we go.
across
Oh.
various
Was
borders.
it? Okay.
But,
I
No,
have
yeah,
heard.
not
Dusk-
a single dev. No.
Yeah, Dusk and Elysian Tale was made by a single developer.
Yes, Dusk. Yeah, Dusk. Dusk I know
Yeah.
for a fact. But yeah,
Or
no,
Dust,
it's
Dusk. Yeah, something like that.
Dust. You're right. T with a T,
Yeah.
I think.
And
Wait.
Dusk,
Yeah.
also
Dusk
single
with a K.
developer.
Yeah.
And then Dusk. Actually,
Yeah.
this is the shooter now,
Yeah.
the first-person shooter.
Yeah.
What do you think on this one, Michiel?
Whew, I think a lot of things about it. Yeah, I totally
Tell your like 10-year-old self before you and Alter were like playing slaying on your phone and being like, we're gonna do this. Like, what would you tell that guy?
Well, definitely second what Reg was just saying. That the infrastructure, if you want to make a living out of this, is very important. Both me and Alter still have our day jobs. We have our main incomes. I'm currently the sole breadwinner in my household. I have a family to
Same
support, you know. And yeah, looking at our sales so far of Shieldmates, that wouldn't cut it. So yeah, it's definitely at least my intention to make this into a sustainable business and to be able to make enough to where I can leave the day job more and more behind me and, you know, start so I can actually put my full attention on this whole game development side of things. And I think for me, you know, there's always this flash in the pan success, or there's always this element of luck, like Reg has already seen with his first game on mobile. And that's something that you, of course, can never plan in, or you can never bank on. So all you can really do is persevere. That's what, just from my side only. Of course, we're a two-man core team, but from my side only, I have the determination, and I just want to make this work. So I'm gonna keep at it. That's why I won't stop hounding people to play our game and try to see it break through. You know, there's no point where I'll stop doing that. There's no cutoff point, like and that's also because we have our infrastructure in place.
Yeah.
There's no point where I have to say like, oh, this is just not worth the effort anymore. I'm losing money over here. No, I just can't. We can just keep on doing it until it becomes a success or successful enough for us.
You're able to balance it, sounds like, right? So
Yeah.
because you have a balance, you're
Exactly.
able to sustain the balance. If it's an imbalance situation, then it's unsustainable, right? It sounds like
Exactly.
you've been able to figure out some kind of balance that's going to hopefully shift towards more fun on one side and maybe a little less responsibility on the other. Well, Alter, what about for you? Like, is it a similar scenario on your end?
I mean, just even putting financials aside for a second.
Just what would you tell
there's-
baby Alter?
Yeah, there's still this huge difference. I mentioned it before, between making a game and making a product.
Okay.
So you need to know, like, if you just want to make it like what you did, right? With Cross Country, you made a game. It's a cool game. You put it on itch, people can play it. If you put it on Steam, like your friend said, and wanted to sell it for I don't know, $5 or whatever,
Yeah.
yeah, you basically couldn't, right? Because it's not a good product. Because
That's
that's something different than a good game, right?
That's right.
So you need to know what your goal is going to be, and then how much work that is going to be. So the first thing, as always, is you should put your initial scope as low as possible, because it's going to explode anyways. No matter how small the game is, it's gonna get bigger. And maybe if it gets too big, you need to cut out some stuff, which is very tough to do, as we learned as well. Especially Michel's stages had to be like physically cut short.
How dare
but-
you? First of all,
I was just
How dare
enjoying
you.
myself too much, building these stages.
Yeah. Yeah, the difficult lesson to learn. Other than that, I mean, we had pretty much smooth sailing during our development, but that's because we had so much preparation time. Like, we had almost a decade of experiencing just making a game. There was no marketing involved or anything like that during that period, but like, we've constantly been learning, we've constantly been talking to each other and to other people. So it's not like we, one day decided to make a game and then a year later we released the game. That's not what has been happening. And also we had a lot of experience from our day jobs that also helps a lot. And I mean, we're probably a bit older than a lot of people that would get into game development, so maybe a bit more laid back, and all of those aspects, and financially as well. Yeah.
that makes sense.
I'll pass on the ball.
Yeah, no, and I like it because I think what I really want to hear from, who I really want to hear from here, because it's a little bit different, I think, is Ben. Because Ben, I mean, you don't come from a gaming job. You didn't work for Capcom or make PS2 games or I don't know what you do, but I'm assuming it's not the same as Alter in terms of programming other things unrelated to games that are very like media centric and things like that.
Not quite. I am a programmer by day, so
That makes sense.
That was yeah. So that was helped give me the skills to make a game, and I also have been doing art as a hobby for my whole life. So that was two big things that I could had a bit of experience with, which helped a lot, which was why I thought I could do this. As for adding anything to what these guys have said, I don't think I've got anything.
Oh, sure you do.
to add.
Yeah, you do. Because look, here's the thing. You said art and programming, right? And those are the two things that I suck at, right? And I was able to make a game. So there's obviously a bunch of stuff you had to learn beyond art and programming. Chief among which is like game design, right? Making a product, everything Alter said. Like, what were some of those lessons learned you think that, like, not necessarily you could do better, but are there things that you would tell people about turning, like, let's say I'm sitting here in this chair and I'm an artist and I'm a programmer. I do Python scripts for an insurance company and I doodle on the side. How the hell I'm gonna make Operation S.T.E.E.L, right? How do I get Dolphin involved? Like, like there's a pretty big leap, I think. And so especially game design in general isn't this just like conceptually. I mean, did you read books? Did you what would you do differently, if anything? Or what advice would you have for other people in your scenario where they're like, I'm an artist, I'm a programmer, I'm gonna make a game. What did Ben do next?
I just started throwing things in there and see what worked.
Hey, I like it.
It's about as simple as it was.
He's a savant, it turns out. He didn't do anything different. He's the next Yakawa. We just didn't know it.
No, he knew the first thing he should do is make the biggest MMO game he possibly could. It was going to be full 3D. That was going to be his first project.
You scoped it down.
Because that's what everybody who gets into any game development thing says they're going to do. And then they crash and burn within 2 months and never code again.
Phantasy Star 3 coming at you.
Yep.
I mean, I thought I had a pretty small scope, but I still cut a lot of stuff that was originally intended to be in the game. But that's also after playing a lot of Shootemups and realizing what I wanted the game to be more like. I think
that's super important, though. Yeah.
Trial and error. Yeah.
So you took the clay, you molded it into something. You went, okay, I don't really know. I have a ton of other stuff to throw to this, but really the biggest thing for you was being able to translate game design that you saw in other shmups in your research back to your project in a meaningful way, and that not only changed your scope but also gave you some credence, right, to to
Just
some
finding
of the
all the
design
bullet
decisions.
patterns I could steal from other games, pretty much.
Yes! You heard it here. This is the secret.
Yeah, it was just like, it would be cool to add, have a big crab for a boss, you know. I just ideas, random things, and just thinking, you know, that would be cool. I could draw that, chuck it in. And
You could draw it. I mean, you have a whole shop in your game. Shmups with shops are like, that's like a whole that if you started off, if you joined a Shmup Discord and the first thing you said is, look, I'm gonna make a roguelike Shmup, it's gonna have a shop, people would be like, all right, listen, bro. They would have to sit you down in a corner and be like, do you know what you're doing? Do you know what you're getting into? You not only made the game, but no one talks about, like, no one goes, oh yeah, that shop's like, all, you know, non-shmup like. It's like the shmuppiest shop ever. It's like perfect. It makes a ton of sense. Like, you can sell things. Your shop has an economy and stuff. There's like elements here that don't exist typically in shmups. I mean, Fantasy Zone, if I could sell my shit weapons, man, I'd be so much better. I could buy the Tears of Opa Opa if I didn't need... Anyways, but the point is that, you know, you definitely cribbed from some great games, and whatever it is that you did, it worked. You know, in terms of game design, because it's not it's really not easy. It's very, like, second everything Greg said of, like, it's so hard, dude.
I would never even think about making a roguelike shoot 'em up, you know, because my very naive assumption was these games need very handcrafted, tailor-made situations and everything. Right. Yeah.
How do you even do that?
That was. I mean, partly that was also. I mean, I didn't have to design levels, so it made that a lot easier.
But you did. That's the thing, right? In fact, if Mikhail would say, no, just let me design the level, that's easier than the thing that you're talking about where you're like programming the level. Like, that doesn't even make sense to us. Like, you know, like.
Well,
like,
I think he means more
impressive.
like you didn't have to
I know what he's saying.
design an environment like a Gradius level where every moment and every twist and turn is part of the experience you're creating, right? It's a roller coaster. Whereas, you know, Danmaku tend to not really, I mean, not that your game's a Danmaku, but like that newer style of top-down shooter is really just, here's a screen boundary, here's stuff that's gonna be thrown at you in it. You aren't really interacting with anything else like physical in the space.
Except for those fucking volcanoes. God. What's wrong with you?
But it's like, from experience, I can say that adding in all that environment stuff is a whole layer of headache that you probably don't even want to
collisions.
Deal with. Yeah, just trying to make it.
There's the Reggie tip.
I get to
2002
learn that next game.
Yeah. Oh no, he said not to. He just told you not to do that.
No, I just said it's a whole layer of headache.
Oh, okay.
If you want to have that and you make it awesome, then more power to you.
And I think BB made two really good points that are super useful tips for you know, people that want to start out making games. It's iterate and research, right? Just throwing stuff into your prototype to see what works. Ideally, get feedback from people that haven't been playing the game before, and incorporate that into the iteration, then into the next iteration, right? And I mean, research, especially because we've been talking about this, right? Like, you have somebody that played R-Type once, and they're like, okay, I know what shmups are about, so I'm gonna make one. And yes, everybody knows what you end up with, right? So that's two super important points. I've seen devs not doing that, and they're struggling unnecessarily for that. Like, just build a prototype for something that you want to try out. You want to know if it's good, build it, and you'll see if it's good. And if you want to have more inspiration, or if you want to know what could work for your game, play other games that already did similar things.
Yeah, and not having it tested by the community. Also, you know, you don't have to specifically make your shoot 'em up for the hardcore shoot 'em up community, but it had better.
No, of course.
It had better stand up under their scrutiny, you know, because if you don't do that, you're going to make a lot of mistakes, and it doesn't even mean that you have to take everybody's feedback on board, but that feedback in itself is going to be super useful into crafting a better game.
Yeah,
We
you
need
should
to
definitely
still,
get
we
play
still listen
testers.
to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Getting the fundamentals right, I think, gives you a lot of freedom to do anything else, whatever you want with the game. But it's those fundamentals is the
That's a good point, right?
Base.
You
And
get the
it's-
fundamentals
and
right.
I-
You
I
put your
think
own art
it's-
in it, your own music, whatever, and you make it your own regardless. What were you saying, Alter?
I think that sometimes it's even fine to go against those fundamentals if it's a conscious decision that you're making. Like, for example, a lot of people have been telling us that we need a shot limit in the game. We told them no, and this is why. Right? We're aware of why people are saying it. This is why we didn't do it. But if you don't know what it is, then you're going to end up doing it wrong in some cases.
I used to talk a lot of shit about non-normalized diagonals in games and complain about it a lot, and then I released 2 games that didn't
Then you
have
did it.
Then I did it myself. Because I
Still
played
makes
it!
sense.
Damn it!
And then
I'm
you
refunding my
realize
own game
it's
here.
the right way.
Yeah.
I hate that happened. But it was literally like, I was like, I don't... Now, honestly, because I've played way too much cross-gunner and testing, now when games don't have normalized diagonals, certain kinds of games, they are normalized, I'm kind of like, why is this ship so goddamn slow? I need to get out of dodge. Like, let me leave. Like, you know, especially when like there's a bullet pattern coming in, you want to diagonally move out of the way because you're like, you know, you don't have the full thruster 1.4% boost of the non-normalized diagonals to get your ass out of the way. You will run into a bullet that, you know, otherwise would have missed you, you know, if you were traveling in the same distance. So it's just a
Gotta collect
fascinating
the
thing.
speed up icon first. Gotta collect the speed up icon.
The day you see speed up icons in my game, Mikhail, that'll
But
be the
for diagonals only, though.
For
Oh,
diagonals.
no, never mind. That's sick. I'm in. That's so sick. A focus shot that all it does is normalize your diagonals. It doesn't do
I'm
anything
already
else.
mad.
Oh, it's gonna be great. Oh, it's gonna be so good. How the ship goes underwater. The only thing that's affected is the diagonals.
Yep.
Or it's like Halley's Comet. Halley's Comet. Yeah, not Halley's Comet. The one that was on Game Gear. I think it's called Halley's Comet. Maybe it's called something Halley. It's a Halley's Comet game on Game Gear. But anyways, the way this game shipped with a bug that I saw in a Pico 8 game that I was trying to tell someone on the Lazy Dev server, I was like, oh, your game has this bug where once you start a diagonal, you can no longer select a cardinal. So your ship is moving, right? Like your ship is moving, and then as soon as you go diagonal, you can only do diagonals. You can
So you have to go back to neutral first?
So you have to go
Or
back to
can go
neutral.
second?
So if you start going left and you start going up left, the only thing that you can now select is down left, up left, or I think you can even go up right. But you cannot go, unless you go back to neutral, you cannot go cardinal directions anymore. And it's something to do with the movement code. And the funniest thing is I'm like, yeah, your movement code's kind of bugged, but I guess a lot of people just weren't, you know, they weren't that conscious of it. They were just kind of like moving in small motions, or they're like just whatever, like I'm just gonna move, I don't care.
Sounds like controlling Arthur in Makaimura and Ghosts and Goblins.
Does that happen sometimes? Like where
You
you
have to reset a lot of stuff to neutral before you.
That's because
because
that's a four-way joystick, right, or something like that. It's the original hardware was a four-way.
I think it's 8-way.
Is it an 8-way? Okay.
Well, it's only 4 directions of movement, though.
Yeah.
So maybe that was
I mean, you
part.
can't shoot at angles or
Yeah, you
anything.
cannot. No.
This
no.
game on
Yeah.
Game Gear is Halley's Comet game. Has the bug. It shipped with the bug. I cleared the game with the bug. I was like, that's amazing. I was like, see, your mistake isn't even that, like, an actual shmup. That's pretty good. Good game, by the way. Shipped with this bug. So it's like, don't feel bad, first of all. But secondly, damn, I can't believe that game shipped with that bug. So it's just, you know, it's one of those things of like, yeah, even something like as simple as movement, you know, the convention is you normalize your diagonals to make micro dodging easier. Then you look at Battle Garega, it doesn't have it. If you didn't know about Battle Garega and all you play was cave games, you would probably just by default normalize your diagonals. Don't make that decision. Play with it both ways. That's all I did. Just exactly as Ben said. I played it one way, I played it the other way, and I went, yeah, this one feels better.
Just don't add
This makes
inertia.
sense. Just don't add inertia. Reg, we can talk about that later. Don't.
Oh my god. Hey, it wasn't like inertia like
It's a car. I
asteroids.
get it. It's a car.
Yeah. It wasn't like asteroids movement or something where you
No,
let
no.
up the joystick and you keep floating one direction.
His car originally did have a little bit of car. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a car, so it had a little bit of car. Spy Hunter has inertia, right? It's not just
It
like
had a little bit of lag when you would switch directions
car.
quickly, like you were hard turning. But yeah, Aktane figured out, like he immediately tuned into it. He's like, is there lag on the inputs? And I'm like, well, there isn't if you're starting from a neutral, but if you go one direction and then hard the other direction, you have like 1 or 2 frames where it climbs back up to the max speed. And he would feel that. And I'm like, well, it's kind of meant to, feel like a car.
It's a car! What's wrong with you stupid schmupper?
And then I took it out and was like, no, this is far better. And nobody noticed it when it was out, and it didn't add enough to the game, so it ended up going away in the end. But
I don't know that many people noticed it even when there was inertia, right? It was like a very subtle, very, very subtle
thing. It was so
and,
small.
And I think, again...
But that's a perfect example of a lot of things that we've been talking about, right? Taking feedback into account. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, the game, it totally improved when people were playing it. Like, I can't stress enough, even if you don't know a lot of people locally, like if you find people on a Discord that you trust enough to throw it in their laps and they're willing to give you honest, real feedback, take it. Like, it doesn't mean you have to listen to everything that's being said and make changes, but definitely, I think that there's a skill to be learned for all devs about how to interpret feedback. Like, when I was at Capcom, nobody wanted to hear feedback, and they would pay to have focus test groups, and we would go sit behind the two-way mirror and watch kids play, and like, we would sit there and watch our designers and our producers just kind of like shirk off what these kids were saying, and all of us artists and programmers were sitting there like, that kid's totally right, that needs to change. Like, and they wouldn't take the advice. And back then we were all fresh fresh in the game industry, and so we thought we knew everything. Maybe
and then
we
Bionic
were wrong,
Commando
we were right.
for the Xbox 360 was born. No, I'm kidding.
Ben Judd, let's not go there.
No, I'm kidding.
But yeah, like all of that, like that ability to take feedback and turn it into something useful, that is a skill you definitely build up over time. So
yeah, we've all seen developers on various discourse and whatever not taking feedback, right, or reacting negatively.
But the other
to what
extreme
they
is taking
perceive
all
as-
feedback on board and acting on
Yes,
all
that's
feedback
also-
that you're getting, and
Yeah.
you
That's also
basically
too
lose
much,
lose control of your game, and it becomes shit in a different way.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it really does affect you when you hear people give you feedback and they're tearing down the stuff you thought you were doing the right way.
Not
or
easy
it
to
was the
take. Huh?
core of what you thought you did right, and you're like, nobody is getting my game. What is wrong? But you have to sometimes just really ask yourself, what is it that's not clicking with them? And what can I change that will still keep the integrity of my idea, but will appease the masses? And sometimes the answer is the thing I wanted to do was just not a good idea to begin with. I mean, in a shmup, if you're
Or
not
you
getting
couldn't
the basics
translate
down,
it. Like, you couldn't
that's a whole
translate
other
the
problem.
idea. Like, it's like it was a good idea,
Yeah.
but I wasn't the right person to bring it to market or translate it in a way that it could resonate with people. Like, we talk about this your car and the inertia and stuff, and as soon as we had this conversation, now I'm like, damn it, I wish it was there, but instead of just being there, when you turn the car the other way, like a little wheel appeared on the screen, and you got that like joystick prompt that's like, you ever see like in like a arcade racing game where it's like you've lost control and you hear the tires screeching, and you have this prompt that comes up. I want like a prompt to come up, and you have to like wiggle the stick or the controller to like get control over your car, because you hard left and then you hard right it or something. It doesn't change the hitbox or anything like that, but it's just like telling the player, oh hey, like, maybe don't take hard turns without, and you're gonna lose a little bit. Just like that, an audio cue, tires kicking up, a little logo. Now suddenly it's like, oh, I get it, what's happening, or something like that. Like, there's all these interesting ways to present. I mean, if it was, and you said yourself, it felt better without it, and that's perfectly fine. But if you was like, yeah, I wanted to feel like a car, I want to have this be a key mechanic. Well, how can you like elevate it up, and then they play it again and they're like, I'm getting more used to this, and now at least it's not something that I'm surprised by or confused by.
Yeah.
And Shmups in general just do, I mean, not all of your games, but in general, I've been thinking about this a lot. They just do such a bad job of just explaining to people what what to do, like at a moment to moment basis, and like what sort of makes sense, like from a mechanical perspective. What's a good play, like what's a bad play, or just in general, like what to do. And in some cases, it's like once you get what to do, you're like, oh, like this isn't, you know, like Fantasy Zone 2 DX is a game I recently played, and I beat it completely. I got the true ending, all that kind of stuff. But it took some time for people to like explain to me, oh, okay, there's these shops, you can route it this way, you got to kill these things really fast. If you scroll it this way, this is how the game's meant to be played, sort of thing. Like this is what you're meant to do. Like, and once that clicked, I was like having so much fun with the game. I was exploring, I was doing different things. I was trying to go left, I was trying to go right. If you get into a game and you go left and you go into a ditch and you don't know why you went into that ditch, you're probably never gonna go left again. Like, you're gonna be so scared to do that again. Or if you go right and the same thing happens, then you're gonna be like, I don't know why that happened, so now I don't know what to do. Versus like, you know, some feedback like that says, oh, like
And
you
this-
painted
this
yourself
sort of
into
thing-
that. So
This level of player discovery was more valid, I think, when the gaming market wasn't that as oversaturated as it is
True.
now, you know?
could be.
Because it's very easy to just bounce off something, and people have Game Pass and buy stuff in sales and everything for very
Mhm.
little financial investment.
That's
So
a good point.
if you immediately don't understand something and bounce off it, you'll probably never coming back to it. Whereas back in the days, there was, there were less games to play, so most players would probably push a little bit further, like, oh, what am I not getting? What am I not understanding? And that journey of player discovery would take place.
I'm gonna leave you guys in
And
this
it's
one.
just in-
Oh yeah, go ahead. Alter.
No, I was just gonna say, just in general, I think it's one of the hardest problems in game design. Not at all limited to shmups. Explaining your game to a player, especially without him realizing that you're explaining it to them, it's almost impossible for some elements.
Yeah,
Well, that
yeah,
was
no,
kind of the
sure.
arcade era in a nutshell, right? Those people were
Yeah.
putting their stuff on location tests. There's so many games that changed drastically from location test to location test, or even games that just didn't get released because they put it in an arcade for 2 weeks, realized no one was playing it, no one got it, and then the company just canned it. Like, we think all those games out of Japan were, awesome works of art that these savants like created perfectly, and it's not the case. In a lot of those cases, they put it on location tests, found out nobody liked it, and then they took it back to the office and made radical changes, or a coder made some crazy change, or the artist made some crazy change, and it just suddenly started working and started clicking with people.
Yeah,
And that's
all
why
of these great insights that we're having, we're not the first people to have them.
Oh,
right,
yeah,
right,
yeah.
right, right,
Not
right.
at
Just
all.
happens
Turns
to
out
be
early
us this
access
time,
was
yeah.
a thing in the 80s. It was just an
Yeah,
arcade thing.
obviously,
Early access to Street Fighter 2. Oh man, none of these inputs work. Oh, we should probably make those work.
Yeah.
The feedback was the coin drop. If you didn't make any money, your
That's
boss
right.
is like, you
Sometimes-
just wasted 3 months of our money.
But I love that
Sometimes
about.
even whole input methods got changed. I think earlier versions of Combat School by Konami had a trackball controller, which
Oh, geez.
didn't work at all for that game.
Street Fighter
that's
1
changed.
had the pressure sensitive.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
that
the
is one.
pressure sensitive button.
Yeah.
Dude, those are sick. Yeah, I love that thought that you said, Reg, because I feel like that's the kind of game if I were ever to make a game or whatever, continue to make games, that's what draws me into shmups specifically, is because you put a coin in or whatever, you hit start, and like pretty much you're in it. Like, you get it within seconds usually. You don't get everything, but you get enough to like meet that first boss and have a pretty good fight with that first boss, where you don't really feel like usually you don't really feel like you've just been cheap shot or you don't get it or whatever. Like, usually you're like, hey, that first stage, that first boss, the big thing comes in, and this button shoots and this button moves the ship, and it's like enough. It's even like a Galaga or something, it's enough. And I think like that's definitely what draws me to the genre, is this arcade concept. Just like you said, is like you don't have a chance to do full tutorials. You just have a chance to like get that first stage into their hands, and hopefully it clicks, right, to some extent, or you kind of forced it. It's a really hard thing to do, especially
We had to, through our playtesting, include a tutorial.
totally.
pretty much.
Yeah, I mean that's the
'Cause
thing.
we-
It's like
Because
that's
we were
better than
thinking
nothing. yeah,
at first we were thinking, sooner or later somebody's gonna get shot. Then they'll see that it triggers a shield, and then everything will lead on from there. But no, people were not registering what was happening at that moment.
See,
in time,
that's
you know?
why
And
again.
people were still trying to dodge all the bullets and stay underpowered and not have a good time. So we had to include the tutorial, even though we didn't want to.
And you know,
Or you have the first enemy fire so many bullets you can't
yes,
dodge them.
yes,
Like
We-
yes,
they
we were
create
think-
a wall of bullets. that
Yes!
I was
takes
thinking
them out.
about that. I was thinking about it, but still, there's just too much going on with the 3 gauges and everything at the same time. Like,
Mhm.
people still wouldn't know what exactly happened there, you know? at
well,
that
or
point.
or
I
the
mean,
opposite,
we-
or the
we even
opposite.
have-
Go ahead, Alter.
Yeah, we even have players that, I mean, we have a forced tutorial. People have to go through the motions and they still don't do it in the first stage afterwards.
There are
So-
videos on YouTube of people playing that still you
Yeah.
still see trying to dodge everything.
What I want to see,
But that's
yeah, what
the
I want to
fun
see
of
is
the
like,
game.
what I want to see is
The
like,
Pac-Man aspect.
Reg.
Yikes.
What I want to
Yeah,
see is
yeah.
like, Reg, your concept of like the boss coming in and shooting like an undodgeable bullet wall, and someone like not able to dodge it and just being like, restart, trying it again. Restart,
Probably.
trying it again. Restart. Man, the hitbox on this game sucks. Delete, refund. So you know, there's nothing, you know. Sometimes that's a Dark Souls approach, right? The first boss in a lot of these Dark Souls games kicks your ass. It's meant to kick your ass. It sends you to the underworld. Then the game starts. It's meant to like explain to you that like, hey, by the way, like this is the experience you're walking into. Like they're trying to like, you know, explain the death mechanic earlier or the shield mechanic in whatever in your case. But I do think it's a fascinating thing. I think tutorials are important. I think that games as they're getting more complicated definitely need them. I think some shmups are simple,
Yeah.
some
And-
shmups are
and-
complicated. That's okay.
And again, we can't trust on people to persevere and try to understand the game anymore, you know?
No,
Yeah,
you
because they
have
won't
to get
give
them
it
in
more
now.
than 5 minutes of
No,
playtime.
there's just too much distraction now and too many other games to play.
Just remove as many barriers as you can to
Yeah.
Yeah.
people in the game. Yeah.
Snappy menus, please. Thank you.
I mean, I'll say that back to like kind of circling way back to something Alter said about the difference between making a game and making a product. One thing I really got out of publisher cooperation was they could give feedback on how to make things a product, but it was often how to incorporate other design ideas into the game that didn't change the game, but made it more rich and full and like a larger experience that players had more to sink their teeth into. And I got so much more out of working with publishers on that level because I wasn't working to get my games into the hands of lots of players. I was just trying to do it all on my own and try to imagine what players would do and imagine the scenario where they won't need a tutorial because this will be so easy for them to figure out. And you really need to have people who have good experience in dealing with the public and keeping up with what players will put up with in order to get over those hurdles.
Yeah.
And
That sounds
it's one
if
of the
you have
biggest
the chance to use a
mistakes.
publisher, use a publisher.
Yeah, and it's one of the biggest mistakes you can make, right? It's assuming you know what the players want.
Yeah.
You don't.
They want
Never do.
shmups. Damn it.
Well, it's worse
Well,
now, too,
hopefully.
because there's so many people playing games that you can't possibly know what they all want, right?
No, I can't. Yeah.
Like back in the 80s, it might have been different when it was a much smaller group of people and it was a much smaller group of genres, and you could really just focus on what you could see selling and doing well and just try to mimic or work with that and branch out a little. But now it's just so different.
Yeah, I mean, video games are so multifaceted, and a lot of people come to them for very different reasons.
Very different reasons now.
Yeah.
Non-gaming, really, like, you know, or if you want to call it that. I mean, more storytelling, you know, more here for like
Yeah, exactly. For
curated
more of a
stories,
narrative
narrative
experience, or just
experiences.
enjoy the artwork, or just
Yeah.
just enjoying walking around in a digital world and exploring it.
Exactly. The concept of a game. I was discussing this with someone. The concept of what is a game, you know, and all that kind of stuff. And it's what is a game and what is a video game are two completely different things, right? Like it's like video games.
Yeah,
are
I know-
video games
I
are
know
transcended
people
games
now-
at this point.
Yeah. I know people now that watch games on Twitch and never play any games.
Sure. Yeah.
That's new, right? It's a
Mhm.
new
Yeah.
thing.
Oh, it's
But just watch other
Who
people play
watched
them.
Mike McKay?
Yeah.
Yeah. They watch Mike Matei play Shieldmaid. They don't pick up a single fight stick for that one.
No,
Yep.
just 500
they're
people
just
were watching
hanging.
it live.
They're just hanging.
500 people were watching it live. 3,000 to 4,000 views. I think that's the most eyes we ever had on our game, and yeah, they're just content to watch him play it and get upset and troll him
and discuss things that have nothing to do with the game.
Which
usually,
is still cool.
Yeah.
Which is still cool. The whole thing, obviously.
Yeah, sure. No one. Yeah.
No, it's new though.
It's
To your
cool.
point, like it's not gaming
Yes.
necessarily. Like it's not the same as me and 4 of my buddies have to all buy copies of Doom or whatever so we can LAN up and play some Doom. And I'll bring my rig. Or, that is no longer as much the thing. And like, to your point, now if you're watching people play, that's every person watching someone play is likely not playing a game at that moment. So the more you think about it that way, there's like, okay, you have 500 people watching Mike Matei. It's probably 500 people who maybe like 100 of them are playing something on the side and watching Twitch on the side, but 400 of them are probably just watching TV at that time, right? By TV, I mean they're watching Mike. Right? They're not playing games necessarily. Some of them may never really be playing games. They may just be watching television, which is fine. It's like a great reality show. You're enjoying it. You know the character, and whatever, right? And their opinions are funny and whatever. Like, it's all that whole part of it's really fascinating. I think that's why I think video games have transcended games, right? Because they've become like a game is like a thing. It has an end. It has an end condition. It has a lose condition. It has a win condition. There are games without those. There are video games without those. There are video games without lose conditions, right out there. That to me is not a game, but it's a video game though. It's a video game for sure, right? Like and so it's and so something like a shmup or a fighting game or whatever, like it's so important that these genres continue to thrive and evolve and insert themselves into these spaces because they define really easily for people what a game is, more so than an experience, right? Like a lot of people playing Fortnite or doing or playing League or whatever, there is a lot of game there. There's a ton of game happening there. But the experience that they're getting, is so... It's like there's a really nice sushi, right, cut, but the roll around it is this big, So there's like sauce and rice and 10 vegetables and 4 other types of meat and then sauce on top of that. And then it's like, yeah, somewhere in there's a game. Right, but it's probably not why you're there. You're there because your buddies are there. You're there because you guys want to talk about the thing you did yesterday. You're there because Drake is doing a concert in Fortnite. You're there because right? Like, when's Drake gonna do a concert in Shieldmaid, guys? When's it gonna happen? That's how you get people to join Shield.
Hopefully never. Hopefully never.
Right? Like, I don't know. Like, yeah, Aubrey. Where's Aubrey? Could someone call Aubrey? So it's
get Aubrey on the phone.
Get Aubrey on the fucking phone. It's so it's like what you're coming to Fortnite for. Some of it's game. I don't think a lot of it's game. What you're coming to Shieldmaid for? It's all game. There's nothing else. I mean, it is all game. So, games, I think, are different, than video games now, and so that kind of creates this interesting kind of conundrum where it's like, well, obviously something like a movie is going to be more palatable than a game to most people. It's you don't have to play it. There's a non-interactive, it's not really as interactive. It's more about, it's very curated. Very easy for someone to enjoy that experience versus having to pick up a joystick and like dodge bullets or do whatever else they need to do.
Speaking on the non-game aspects of the video games that we're making, I think it's super fascinating and important if we want to be financially successful. We've incorporated some super small things that are not game, right? Like the leaderboard is not part of the game, not of the thing that you're doing in the
Everybody
game.
here has online leaderboards. You fucking smart people, people.
We try to expand on the.
Look at you.
We try to expand on the leaderboards a little bit. You can choose a title that you earn in the game. We added replays and things. And I'm thinking of some more things that we could do with that. Like, for example, one thing I wanted to do is make an app for the game. So you have this sort of companion app where you can check replays and do other things that are a bit more social, like not like social media, but like, you know, you're doing it to interact with people and not with the game itself. And just releasing the game just releasing a mobile port of the game doesn't make that much sense, right? But maybe having something on mobile would.
Well, you don't want to
And I
fight.
think-
You don't want to fight for app space on phones. It's like a losing battle, right?
No.
In a lot of ways.
That's true.
So that's a
Yeah,
tough
yeah,
one. I mean,
that's
there's
true.
been really amazing games that have companion apps that are really good apps, really smart apps.
Yes.
That's still just you're not going to get your phone out kind of thing, like, you know, to do that. But I do love this idea of like trying to figure out how to integrate into an app in a meaningful way, like
Just
you know,
just what you
social
said,
ecosystem.
expand beyond the pure core game.
Exactly.
Which obviously is the core of the thing that you're selling, but there could be other things around it. Like,
So I mean,
super simple example, we did the Discord bot for the leaderboards. So on our Discord you can ping the bot and it'll paste the leaderboards from the back end. Super simple, super small, but it's a cool thing that you can do that is not part of the game. And
yeah.
and you can expand on that, right?
I mean, I think like even as simple as I was thinking about this. Like, every time I have this discussion, I go further and further with this idea, and then one day it's just gonna like explode into something I don't even know. But it's like now I'm thinking, now I'm envisioning like a Shield made MX like sort of server P2P lobby scenario where you join the lobby, hardcore players, chill players, new players. You kind of see what stage everyone's at. You can kind of jump into someone, watch someone play if you want to, or you can play yourself if you want to. There's like the current leaderboard of that lobby since it was started. So
Yes.
it's a transient leaderboard, right? Which means it always starts at 0, which means you could join in a lobby and play the game, maybe get third, second, first, right? That's the beauty of fighting games is you can join a fighting game lobby as a rookie and like beat someone, and then you're like, damn, I beat someone. Then you want to beat the next guy.
That's really
Like-
cool, actually, because nobody's coming close to Stake either on those leaderboards anyway.
No, and
Yeah.
we just
On
ban him
the
from the
permanent
lobby
ones.
system. Yeah, we don't.
Yeah,
We just
yeah.
Steak's not allowed to be in any of the lobbies. He's got his own Steak lobby. You got to go in there. You gotta have you gotta knock on the right door, have the right passcode to enter that lobby. You know, but
Yeah, exactly. And all of
but it's
those
just like-
meta things that a lot of other genres do. Some of them by necessity, but some of them also just because it's cool and people want that, right? So that's definitely something that we could expand upon. Unfortunately, it's not easy to do. Anything that has to do with networking
Of course.
is super painful. But that's another way to propel things forward, right?
Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, I think we have covered a ton of ground. I think there's so many great ideas here. I feel like if you're an indie dev and you're watching, and you have comments or questions for anyone here that you see, just drop them below here on the vid, and I'm sure we'll have someone get back to you. But you know, I just want to say, like, you know, one, thanks for taking the time and just like talking to the folks, but two, like,
Thanks for having us.
I mean, I see everyone here as like in the start. It's so crazy. You're talking 10 years. You're talking 10 years. BB, you've got 3, plus programming experience. I've only been into Shmups for like 2.5 years, going on 3 now. Like, this is so nascent. Everyone here is already so successful. If you think about a journey, a 20-year, 30-year journey in game design, like, it is amazing to me that we've come this far, even as a start, and that we're continuing to push the boundaries, and that someone can really do this. I mean, Reg, you've kind of made the point that it can be done, maybe not exclusively in Shmups, which is a key point I think you made, but like, it can be done, and it's, this is the time. If you're an indie dev and you like Shmups or you like arcade games, I really do believe this. I think this is the time to learn the tools and get your legs. So when this boom kind of really takes off and we really have this like arcade renaissance, which is, I think, is now currently softly and slowly happening. Like, people are buying arcade one-up cabinets of their old games and putting them in their living room, and like, you're seeing them in rap videos and stuff. And these are like shitty $300 it's happening, right? It's happening. So when these guys on this call get to their next game and they take all these lessons learned and they're making the next big thing, and it's not just the Operation S.T.E.E.L 2, but it's like the next big thing in shmups. Like it's gonna have a lot more eyes and ears on it. And so if you're getting into it, this is the time. Make some prototypes. Listen to everything these guys have had to say, and reach out, become a part of the community. Doesn't matter which one. Just pick a Discord, jump on one, and start talking to people about the genre. So far, the best thing about shmups is I know nothing, and I can call the four of these guys, and we can have a conversation about an in-depth conversation about the games, the dev journey, all this kind of stuff. That's not going to happen in these other genres. Like, it's not. We are so small as a niche, but it also makes everybody really accessible. And you can talk to Boghawk tomorrow if you want to about your game. You can talk to Reggie maybe if he's not hanging out with his family. But but we are. It's like, this is so exciting to be a part of and see all of these games. Not only get made, play them, and enjoy them, but that I feel like everyone here is just starting, which is crazy to me to say, but it's so true. Like everything I've heard you guys say, This is the beginning for so many interesting and new things happening, and not just obviously in this group. Chunderfin's making Hazelnut Hex, and like other people coming back out of the woodwork to finish their games. Terrarin's making a game a week and shit, like just crushing it. His games are still phenomenal, like so good. There's a lot of interest, and if not by nuance, by force, we will take the indie game community. it's gonna happen. So I appreciate everyone
we
joining
want it
us.
to happen, and we as a relatively small community within the indie sphere, we're sticking together, and we're trying to help each other out, and we're all kind of trying to figure it out together as well. We're not speaking here from the position of gurus who have figured everything out already. No, we're learning as we go, and we're trying to make sense of it all. But we're definitely trying.
So this is part 1. Join us in 2032 for part 2, 9 years from now, when we see where everyone's been up to for 9 years. No, but thanks.
That sounds like a plan, yeah.
There it is. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. This is a ton of time that you take out of your busy dev schedules to hang out with me and others. And I hope people watching this have a good time and enjoy the discussion. And we'll see you guys next time.
Cool. Thanks, Red. Bye.